The time is 5:13, I apologize, p.m. Board members present. Via Zoom are Trustee Santos and Trustee Hernandez. Board members present in the board auditorium are Trustee Bluford Daniels, Trustee Allen, Trustee Dygard, Trustee Flynn Villaseca, Trustee Sung, Trustee Cruz, and Trustee Guidry. Trustees, please mute your mics and turn on your video so our colleagues and the public can see you. We'll start with our Women's History Month. March is Women's History Month. I'd like to ask Trustee Sung to present the official proclamation that has been prepared.
Whereas women have made significant contributions to the growth and strength of our city, state, and nation in countless ways, and whereas throughout our nation's history, women have been leaders in shaping our economy, culture, and values, building a foundation for strong families and communities across America. And whereas women of every race and ethnicity have fought not only for their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but have also stood at the forefront of every major social change movement for human rights and equal access and opportunities for all. And whereas through these efforts, women have helped to create and preserve our nation's robust workforce and prosperous democracy. And whereas it is appropriate to gratefully acknowledge the skills, abilities, and achievements of all women who support excellence and success at every level of the Houston Independent School District. Now, therefore, we, the HISD Board of Education and the Interim Superintendent of Schools, do hereby proclaim March 2021 Women's History Month in HISD, and we encourage all to join in this observance and expression of appreciation for the contributions of women. In witness thereof, on this 11th day of March 2021.
Hearing of the community. Students, please note that we are conducting our hearing of the community in two parts in order to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. We are glad you have joined us online today. In response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, the Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is operating at reduced capacity, and the board auditorium is closed. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from our students. In order to have our voices heard by the HISD Board of Education, you must have registered to speak with Board Services Office by 9:30 a.m. today. Speakers should have left a telephone number when registering. District staff will call registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of your district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to board services via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 12 student speakers who have registered this evening or submitted comments to be read aloud during the portion of the meeting. Comments shall be limited to 300 words or 2 minutes each. Please refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Abusive statements or threats of confrontation are not permitted. Any comments in violation of these guidelines will not be read.
Our first student speaker is Logan George. Go ahead, Logan.
Hello, good evening, board members. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Logan George, and I'm a senior at Carnegie Vanguard High School. I'm also head of student and alumni outreach for Diversify Our Narrative HISD. Diversify Our Narrative HISD, also known as DAWN, is a student-led organization fighting to implement diverse anti-racist texts into our curricula. This is the third board meeting our organization has spoken at. 2 months ago, 5 of our organizers presented Dawn's mission and goals, and then last month, 5 other organizers spoke on item K1A and how we plan to assist HISD in creating a comprehensive anti-racist education. Our recommendations for changes to HISD's curriculum are outlined in a petition that has received over 1,000 signatures from students, parents, alumni, and teachers from 35 schools in the district. The HISD community has spoken and affirmed their support for expanding diversity in literature. Racism is taught, and in order to move towards a more inclusive and open-minded future for our country, we need to ensure that the materials we're teaching in schools aligns with that vision. As students, we feel that making these changes is crucial not only to combat racism through literature, but also to ensure students feel represented in the lessons they are taught in schools. Today, for other organizers who will be presenting with me for Diversify Our Narrative, we'll be discussing a potential board workshop about diversity in literature and the role we want to play in the new superintendent search. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Will Newman. Go ahead, Will.
All right, good evening, board members. My name is Will Newman, and I'm a junior at Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, and I'm an organizer for the Student Alumni Committee for the Diversify Our Narrative. We recently had meetings with trustees Elizabeth Santos and Ann Sung that were very productive. We worked on finding ways to get texts to students and have already established ways to start fundraising for the school. Elizabeth Santos and Ann Sung gave us insight on how the lobbying process worked. This helped us down the road with finding room for possible amendments in our policy. A workshop with the board would be more than helpful in helping Dawn find a way to effectively implement our recommendations. We would be honored to work with a group of adults who share the same values that we as an organization share, to give students the most enlightening education they can have. A workshop would be crucial in helping Dawn create a solution to any impediments that come our way and find room for compromise. We're here to collaborate. We want to workshop our policy with y'all so we can effectively implement our goals in a way that works best for both parties. Our workshop would look like the productive meeting we had with trustees Elizabeth Santos and Ann Sung. We hope that we can continue to grow closer to our goals by finding time to meet with other trustees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sandhya Madali. Go ahead, please.
Hi, hello board members. I'm Sandhya Madali, and I'm a senior at Carnegie Vanguard High School and a member of the Publicity Committee for Diversify Our Narrative. And a meeting with all of you is paramount to furthering our mission as an organization, and having an open dialogue will allow for transparency on both sides. We aim to make the transition to a more diverse curriculum as smooth and collaborative as possible. And this workshop will allow us to show you the specificities of our recommendations, as well as the materials our organization has already prepared for easy implementation of diverse and anti-racist text. Working together would also allow the student's voice to be heard in a way that does not clash with the board's goals, and we'd be able to implement any changes or advice that the board members may have to contribute. The visions of the board and Dawn's mission align in many ways, and this workshop would bring us many steps closer to our collective goal of creating a safe, vibrant, and joyful spaces where students are guaranteed access to challenging and deep educational experience in HISD's classrooms. Both Dawn and HISD's board aim to meet the needs of a diverse community, which can be done by introducing these anti-racist and diverse texts into the curriculum. Board Constraint 4 outlines anti-racist training for the board, and we aim to extend this value to all of HISD. The board has also committed to inclusivity and transparency in their duties as mentioned by Board Constraint 1. This workshop will provide the transparency in operations that the board has pledged to adhere to. Along this vein of open communication and HISD's goals, we would also like to reaffirm the importance of our involvement in selecting a superintendent that prioritizes students of all backgrounds.
Thank you. Elena Olivara.
Into the curriculum. Board Constraint 4 outlines anti-racist training for the board.
Elena, go ahead, please. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena. Good afternoon. My name is Elena Oliveira,
and I'm a junior at the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts and organizer for the Parent-Teacher Outreach Committee of Diversify Our Narrative. The HISD beliefs that Sandhya just described are also important for the superintendent. We propose that Dawn HISD's demands for culturally inclusive text by authors of color be added to specifically item K1A constraint number 3, which currently reads as the superintendent won't allow the district to operate without notifying parents at least once every 12 weeks about how to help their students if the student is 1 or more grades behind in literacy. We think it would be important to add our curriculum goals to the resolution. We know that the board's timeline includes meetings to get community feedback on desired superintendent traits, and we want to ensure that diverse texts for the diverse range of students in our district are not just a thought or a wish for a superintendent, but as an actual protected, written out part of the constraint. As a district with majority students of color, anti-racism in classrooms is important and even has a direct correlation with improving literacy. We see this in countless educational research studies, and a lot of us that have spoken here tonight have had experiences of going for years without ever reading material about people from our cultures, and it can definitely impact learning in the classroom. We believe prioritizing students and their learning through representative English curriculums should be an essential part of the new superintendent who will be leading our district in a few months, so we hope to be part of that process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kaylee Alexander. Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Alexander. I'm a junior at Kinder High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, and last year I became a local organization committee member for Diversify Our Narrative HISD. This evening, our members have discussed Dawn's initiative, emphasizing the importance of implementing anti-racist texts within HISD curriculum, the autonomy of HISD teachers in choosing diverse literature, and the election of a superintendent who prioritizes Dawn's goals. We discussed plans for a workshop, which would mirror the conversations we had with Trustees Santos and Sung, that introduces the extent of our organization's mission and how we can move forward in partnership to advance the inclusion of diverse literature in HISD's curriculum. The partnership of the board and Dawn in an educational workshop would result in the progression of anti-racist education and a more collaborative relationship going forward between HISD and the students of which it serves. As we're facing the election of a new superintendent replacing the accomplished Granita Lathan, Dawn wants to specify the need for a superintendent who advocates for inclusive literature and supports our mission. We condemn your receptiveness as our audience this evening and commitment to the advancement of a more inclusive education in Houston. Our organization is grateful to have the opportunity to express our demands and to support HISD in its growth towards an acceptable education for all of its students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yesenia Gaspar.
Go ahead,
Yesenia.
The partnership of the board and Dawn in an educational workshop will result in the progression of... Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Yesenia Gaspar, a junior at Carnegie and a STUPON member. Along with another member, we hosted a mini house meeting yesterday in which the topic was socioeconomic inequity. The conversations that we had felt genuine and raw, and I think that this can be attributed to how the students felt comfortable in sharing their stories with peers who might have experienced similar events. Students expressed their deep sentiments on the issue, and the most common thing that I heard was that students felt like schools located in low-income neighborhoods were left to fend for themselves and did not have the sufficient funding they needed to provide a prosperous environment for students. We have students from a diverse set of schools, which 2 from Fur, 2 from Heights, 1 from Chavez, 1 from East Early. We also talked about our upcoming spring organizational workshop, which will occur during spring break. Currently, we have 15 students signed up, with 3 from East Early, 3 from Chavez, 2 from Fur, 2 from Carnegie, 1 from HSPBA, 1 from North Forest, 1 from Eastwood, and 1 from Northside. I truly believe STUCOM will continue to reach more and more students in the district, and that we will continue to grow. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Michelle Leon. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, board. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, board. My name is Michelle Leon. I'm a freshman at Bel Air and a current member of STUCON. I hosted a house meeting 2 Saturdays ago with my fellow freshman Michael on the topic of mental health. A house meeting usually lasts from 60 to 90 minutes, and StuCon is organizing one every Saturday to talk to other HISD high school students. This meeting had all freshmen from Chavez, Sterling, and Fur high schools. It was extremely sad to hear that students feel as if teachers are not actually worried about their mental health. Sometimes it feels as if we as students only get assignments due at 11:59 without the thought of someone considering how we're doing. Our mental health is being overlooked. We shouldn't feel as if school is just about education when schoolwork, tests, and other people are mentally draining. I hope someone can take this into consideration the next time the student turns in late work. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Scranton. Go ahead, Dylan.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi. Good evening, school board. It is an honor to be able to speak with you all this evening. I really felt that I am needed here to be able to speak on this important topic. I am a 7th grader who attends KIPP Courage, and I am here representing One Houston. I feel like our students in HISD need counselors on campus 24/7. This has to be a constant thing, and I have benefited tremendously by having a counselor. My school, having many counselors, has allowed me to feel appreciated and loved in the community where I am the minority. Especially for students of color, we need these counselors here to make them feel safe and have equity in their schools. I have never felt like my voice was really mattered as much as others until I attended KIPP, where my voice was constantly encouraged to be used. This is why counselors need to be at school 24/7. Thank you all.
Thank you. Princess Daswala.
Houston. I feel like our students in HISD need counselors on campus 24/7. This has to be a constant thing, and I have benefited from.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Princess Dasolo, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that you give me to present this for me, not only for me, but for other students too. So speaking about the counseling, which I have to say about that is that counseling is something that's really important for kids our age and kids in multiple other schools, specifically because it's a place where we can share our thoughts and be comfortable and give our thoughts on what we feel and what we're going through in our mental health, and to think that some kids don't really get the chance to do that is very sad. I think I have benefited from having a counselor in many ways. Having a counselor has set me straight because not only do they sit there and listen to our problems, they give us advice, and advice that you sometimes don't get from anywhere else. They give you their trust, and they give you a space to be comfortable in. As for me, I'm not a very social person, therefore I don't really like to communicate with people because I don't really trust people. So for me to sit in a space where I feel protected, and for me to tell people what is going on in my mind, which is a very sacred place, is very important, and it takes some time for me to be comfortable with it. It's also really important to talk to someone that takes me seriously. Something that our counselors help us with is issues that we have at home. There's some certain kids that have issues that are going on at home that affects them in multiple ways in their grades and in their normal life, most importantly in their mental space. Another good quality that the school that I go to, KIPP, has with their own counseling is they not only give us or allow us to talk to counselors at our schools, they allow us to talk to counselors at other schools on different campuses, especially if we're not comfortable with the people that we are with now. They also give us certain times to take breaks because kids get stressed out, even though we're kids, but we get stressed out.
Thank you. Disha Bhattacharya. Good evening. I'm Disha Bhattacharya, a junior at Carnegie Vanguard High School. I joined the HISD Student Congress in the fall of 2021 because it was advertised by my school counselors. As a member, I facilitate house meetings and conduct outreach. I'm also working with 4 other students to plan a spring organizing workshop for new members that will take place next week. The spring organizing workshop will be similar to the winter organizing workshop that I attended over winter break. Additionally, on Saturday, February 12th, 2021, I facilitated a house meeting on online learning in HISD with Nicholas McDermott. Please note that these meetings are through Zoom, not in others' homes. The purpose of a House meeting is to surface shared issues and build community among a diverse group of constituents. Meeting attendees came from East Early, Eastwood, Fur, HSPVA, Jones, North Forest, Westbury, and Yates. Nick will now speak on some of the common themes that came up during the meeting. Thank you.
Nicholas McDermott. Good evening, Board. My name is Nicholas McDermott, and I am a senior at Kashmere High School. As Disha mentioned, I helped facilitate a House meeting on February 12th on online learning. Some great topics came up in the meeting, such as how a Westbury High School student taking classes in person got less assistance than the people who are virtual. Students don't get enough time to submit their work because the due time on assignments is 4 p.m. instead of 11:59 p.m. Students are unaware of assistance programs in their schools, like wraparound services, a service that allows students to wash clothes, get food, and so many other things. We in the Student Congress are looking for issues that can make our district a better place. Thank you.
Christian Salas. Good evening. I'm Christian Salas, a senior at Eastwood Academy and a member of the Student Congress. After many weeks of waiting, we have wondered what the status of the meeting with StuCon and HISD officials is. I understand that priorities may have changed due to the winter storm, but we have yet to touch base with anyone about this. Students need support now more than ever. This cannot be on hold any longer while students are still struggling in all aspects: school, income, life, and even with basic needs. I organized a House meeting this past Saturday with Jennifer Hamad, where we talked about the school to prison pipeline. We had students from Chavez, DeBakey, HSPVA, Eastwood, and Westside attend. At the meeting, students felt as if their mental health and home life were not being considered when being punished, that disciplinary systems were harsh to them, and that certain racial groups were being punished over others. Students felt that they were often misunderstood and that people shouldn't be labeled as bad because that label follows them for the rest of their lives. Finally, to be clear, this meeting took place over Zoom, not in a house. So, I guess we'll move to comments to agenda items. The first item held for registered speakers is D1, approval of waiver for hybrid instruction during district scheduled testing days for kindergarten through 8th grade students. We'll now take our first caller, and that caller is Gary Monroe. Go ahead, Mr. Monroe.
All right. I want to tell y'all something, man. Sometimes you're too smart for your own good. And be careful what you wish for. I'm going to say this just like they said it in Remember the Titans. When they didn't want the black coach to coach the white kids. In the Houston Independent School District, we didn't want the black woman to be over the school district. But I want you to know something. Without ever saying your name, you belong to us. And we're not going to let you leave the city of Houston until we give you a party like you ain't never seen in your life. Those that don't like it, when it's all said and done, you are going to reap what you sow. You may have made a deal with the devil. And the devil is going to come for your soul in the form of taking over your school district. Some of y'all got too many degrees, and you're just too smart for your own good. But I'm glad my superintendent said what she said. Now she can go where she's appreciated. The rest of y'all, we're going to handle y'all on election day. Trust me when I tell you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is D2, approval to waive certain requirements of board policy, DNA local, in light of the COVID-19 impact on normal district operations. Our first speaker is Daniel Santos. Go ahead, please.
Many degrees, and you're just too smart for you.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay,
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
members of the board. Thank you. My name is Daniel Santos, Executive Vice President of the Houston Federation of Teachers. I rise to speak in support of item D2, waiving certain components of the teacher evaluation system. In an extraordinary year characterized by challenges and flexibility, a year in which teachers sacrificed their lives and were vilified for daring to complain about it, a year in which teachers embraced new technologies and were assaulted for not doing enough, HFT applauds the district's bold decision to acknowledge teachers' sacrifices with this waiver, and moreover, to recommit to what matters most now, prioritizing the health and safety of our students, teachers, and support staff. This means maintaining the mask mandate in addition to other CDC-recommended protocols for COVID-19 safety. Teachers and support staff are frontline workers and need to be protected until the pandemic is under control. Please vote for teachers, vote for agenda item D2, and vote for what matters most now, the health and safety of students, teachers, and support staff. And finally, HFT would like to congratulate Dr. Lathan and wish her well as the next superintendent for Springfield Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Claudia Morales.
To recommit to what matters most now, prioritizing
Dr. Morales, go ahead, please.
Students, teachers, and support staff. This means maintaining the mask mandate in it.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Morales.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the board. I am Dr. Claudia Morales. I was a bilingual teacher and administrator in the Houston area for more than 18 years. I currently serve as the Professional Development Director at the Houston Federation of Teachers. I want to speak for D2 tonight because I firmly believe that teachers are working harder than ever in the current environment. Many HISD teachers teach online and in person at the same time, and instead of being supported, they are criticized. Many teachers are placed on PPAs, also known as growth plans, based on short observations and sometimes based on unreasonable expectations. Too many teachers work so hard but get no credit for all they do. I hope that very soon many teachers will come forward and tell you, the public, and you, members of the board, how they feel when they do so much to help their students but get zero recognition and so many negative remarks on their evaluations. This year, teachers need more support than ever. Teachers should not have to spend time agonizing over PPAs or low scores because most struggle to fulfill two roles. They should spend their time strategizing plans to help their students experience academic success. I urge you to vote for D2 and consider canceling PPAs, at least for this school year. So easing the workload related to tasks is a step in the right direction. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is D3, approval to waive a requirement of board policy DNB local in light of the COVID-19 impact on normal district operations. Our speaker is Christopher Williams. Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. My name is Christopher Williams. I'm a teacher in HISD, and I was calling tonight on behalf of advocating for item D2. I believe that if teachers have demonstrated effectiveness in the classroom and have met professional expectations thus far, they should qualify for the abbreviated appraisal process. Allowing for a modification to the appraisal process this year will allow teachers and administrative teams to focus on the much-needed interventions that our students need in helping to deal with the challenges that have been brought on by not only the pandemic, but also the recent winter storm. So once again, I would urge trustees to pass item D2 and allow for the abbreviated appraisal process this year. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Thank you. That concludes our student speakers and our speakers to agenda items.
Thank you, Chief Dimmitt. We are now ready to hear from Dr. Lathan on instructional continuity. Trustees, please hold your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, trustees. This is our monthly update as it relates to instructional continuity. Student enrollment currently, as of February the 12th, 2021, was at 196,041 students. You see the breakdown by elementary, middle, and high school. Just the numbers again, and we've shared these numbers previously. Remember, every 6 weeks, parents do have the option to choose to send their students face-to-face or to revert back to virtual. And just wanted to share with you the breakdown of the number of students that are attending school in person and the number that are attending remotely. We were averaging about 86,000, I think, right at January. As you can see now, we're up to about 88,000 students that are attending school in person. So very excited that that number continues to climb. We'd love to have all of our students back, of course, definitely by August. Some expenditures as it relates to COVID. We wanted to just kind of bring you up to speed. We are prepared. If you recall, Chief Reed presented a budget update to you when we presented the amended budget in February. So that was the most recent up-to-date numbers as it relates to our budget. We are scheduled for a budget workshop also on March the 25th. And so these are just some amounts that we have spent as it relates to the budget. I know that there are questions about the relief at the monies that will be eventually at some point coming to the state of Texas and school districts. We do not have that answer at this time because remember the money flows to the state first. The state will determine how the monies will be dispersed to school districts. So we don't know the impact because we have not received. Here is the allotment that HISD would receive. So I want to just make sure, trustees, that you are aware of that. But as soon as we get that information, we will be sharing it out. And so, Chief Reed, you can check that out because he wanted to make sure I made that clear. February was a cold, no water, no power month for all of us. And I just want to provide you with an update. I know I shared communication with the board members throughout the storm. When I was able to charge my phone in the car and get power like everyone else in the state of Texas, and also share the update. So we wanted to just share with you the things that occurred while the district was closed. We provided wraparound supports to our families. We provided lists of community resources for families to access. We continue to have our advisors allocate time to conduct outreach to our scholars just to make sure that they had what they needed. Also, Operation Warm provided coats to students at Berry Elementary School. Really excited that they were able to do that. And this year we definitely needed those coats. And so we want to thank them for their continuous support of students in HISD. And they've supported us for over 20 years now. Also, immediately, Sam Houston High School, Scroggins Elementary School, worked in collaboration also with the Houston Food Bank to distribute over 1,800 boxes of food to families. Garden Oats organized a coat drive, and also they provided giveaways around food, clothes, and water. Penn Oak Middle School also distributed supplies such as food and clothing. Students wrote letters of gratitude to the Houston Food Bank. Alcott Elementary School served over 500 families that Sunday after the storm in partnership with Smart Scholars Foundation, where families were provided, of course, coats, school supplies, gloves, water, and bus passes. Wesley Elementary School also passed out care packages to students. Milby High School, Edison Middle School, Foster Elementary School, and you'll see the water families, and there are still some families that are still in need of water, and we provided that and supported them over the past several weeks. We partnered with the Houston Food Bank for distributions on February 20th, 21st, and 22nd, and where we provided over 6,800 boxes of meals for families over 3 days. And then we went back to our regular schedule on February the 22nd. In the middle of the storm, amended planning documents were created to support our teachers, and information for our families were pushed out. We emailed that information out to all families so students knew what their schedule, what they needed to do to access their schedules on that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday when we were operating virtually for students. And these are amended documents that went out to teachers. Facilities impact. We had over 500 service calls as it relates to frozen pipes, leaks, and HVAC repairs. Trustees, those were the updates that I was sending you about the campuses and the issues. We had a number of campuses that experienced water issues, HVAC issues, and it seemed like every time our facilities crew would get something repaired, something else would break or there was another issue. And so I want to definitely thank our facilities and maintenance department for their outstanding work during the storm. Just to kind of bring you back to supporting students, we have over 140,000 students that logged in to the hub the week of that we were closed for face-to-face. And then another 80,000 student logins for other resources. These are some of the resources that they accessed during that week. We've continued to provide academic after-school programming for students. We have our 21st Century Community Learning Centers. That's a grant. That grant has been in existence now for a number of years, and there's a criteria for that we have to apply for that follows to select those students. And we select those schools based across the district based on demographics, mainly free and reduced lunch percentages. And so those are the schools, and then we apply for those every time the grant is available. We have about 2,330 students participating currently in our after-school programming through this particular grant. That does not mean that we don't have other after-school programs occurring on campuses. This is just one that district-wide we have received a grant to support. And so we have about 61, like I said, other campuses offering after-school programming. Fine arts, we continue to support our fine arts program through various apps. Really excited that we've been able to purchase licenses so that our students have access to continue to enhance their skills. Career readiness, certification planning and support. We've provided support to 39 campuses. We have sites that have been credentialed, providing online support through curriculum. Just a reminder of our CTE initiatives. We've offered some live events. We held live events on February 4th, February the 11th, and we have an additional date. And then our Seniors to Success program had to be rescheduled due to the storm. Virtual visits for our students are occurring to make sure that they have access to career exploration. Really excited. Remember, our goal is we started exposing students at the elementary grades so that they can start dreaming about what they want to be when they graduate from high school, graduate from college, trade school. Other supports around CTE with story time. Once again, just sharing various careers through reading and literacy with our students. We have career advisors supporting 48 campuses, ensuring that the individual graduation plans are created and per state guidelines, ensuring that students are applying for scholarships or assisting them with applying for scholarships. And then we have a district career advising book club that we've launched where 65 students have committed and participated. Continue to provide advising sessions for our students in English and Spanish, just to make sure that they understand how to fill out a job application. They're exposed to various careers. Just some different facilities upgrades. So, you know, we talk about COVID and the issues that COVID has posed for us, but also we've been able to upgrade some of our facilities as it relates to capacity or limited capacity to enhance our CTE programs. And so at the Barbara Jordan Center, we were able to get that area updated as it relates to our cosmetology program. Also the Ag Barn for Chavez High School, we were able to get all of that cleaned up so that students have a better environment when they're out there. All the old equipment, groundskeeping was addressed. Wheatley High School, we installed new commercial stoves for their culinary arts program. Wisdom High School, we finished up their welding lab, once again working across the district to address different programming that we have been working on for several years now. Other opportunities for our students through either Prairie View, Team Up for Houston's Youth, just being able to provide our students with exposure, once again, to various careers, scholarship information. Community partnerships. I want to thank KHOU for the Super Bowl of Caring Telethon. We were able to raise $83,000 for wraparound services food pantries across the district. So I really want to thank them and thank our other partners for supporting us. We've received donations from the Barbara Bush Literacy Foundation, United Airlines to support Sterling High School's aviation program, United Way, the Houston Texans cheerleaders, and Target. And want to thank also our partners for supporting us by donating masks and bottles of hand sanitizers to our district so that we could distribute to our students and our staff. We continue to provide family engagement workshops, supporting our families through Parent University. Really excited. We just most recently held a Parent University this past Tuesday evening. And remember, once a month it is virtual. And we are seeing the numbers increase as a result of being in a virtual format for Parent University. Also, North Forest has officially opened their full-service resource room at their campus, and we're starting to see more of those full-service resource rooms open up at campuses across the district, just so that parents have a one-stop shop where they can receive clothing, diapers, school supplies, and other items that they need. We are ready for our students to begin taking their AP and IB exams, and we've implemented, as I shared with you, I believe last month, virtual study halls to support students, Saturday academies. We have teachers that have participated in the AP Summer Institute, making sure that they have the necessary resources and understanding to help and support our students. School Choice Fair, we were delayed. We had to extend the application for responses, and we all, as it relates to Magnet and Choice programs, also we've held several virtual fairs throughout the school year. Social emotional learning support, just areas that we've focused on and provided support to staff members and also students, and geared toward just helping them to cope, not only as it relates to COVID, but just coping in general. As I stated, we continue to follow our schedule of distributing meals to our families. Here's our schedule. Wednesdays 2 to 6, we're at Barnett Stadium. On Saturdays from 10 to 1 until we run out of food and supplies, we are at the following locations: Almeida Elementary, Butler, Hattie Mae White, the Holiday Food Services Center, MC Williams, and Sugar Grove Academy. Trustees, I shared with you during my weekly update, and actually I sent it in a separate email, that we will be asking you to approve the calendar for the 2021-20 school year at the April board meeting. We've shared that information out publicly. The draft of the calendar has gone out to every staff member, also to parents. It's posted on our district website for input. Also, it has been presented to our principals ad hoc committee, all of our principals, our district calendar committee, been through several drafts, so it's been through several drafts, but like I said, the information is posted on our district website and an email went out. Just some things to note about what we're proposing and asking for your approval: additional days to support learning loss as it relates to COVID, ensuring that also the calendar aligns with not only our surrounding school districts, but our institutions of higher education, and making sure spring break is aligned to those other partner districts and colleges also. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. We are now ready for comments or questions from trustees. In keeping with our meeting norms and being respectful of trustees who desire more time to speak, as well as those who desire shorter meetings, we will do 2 rounds of 2 minutes each. If an additional round is desired, that can be done with a motion, second, and board vote. Any questions in the queue? I don't see any. Trustee Song?
Thank you so much for this presentation and update. With regards to our in-person attendance, you mentioned that that's increased. How does our current in-person attendance compare to our October snapshot? How does our current attendance of students in person currently compare with our October snapshot? And I'm asking because, of course, the hold harmless, that would affect how we're held harmless with regards to funding for the spring semester.
And I'll need to look at that and get that information. We've been talking about that, and I'm glad you pointed that out because we have been monitoring that because we know that that will impact us. And I know we talked about it last week, right after the commissioners' meeting. Remember we talked about that percent cannot drop down? Can you say it a little bit louder? I don't think.
So we cannot, when we submitted PINGs back in the fall, we were at 40.2% in-class, in-person learning. We can't drop below that 40.2% in the sixth week to be eligible for funding.
Okay, thank you. And we're well over that at this.
We're about
current.
45%.
45%.
But spring tends to always drop, right? So we still need to keep a very sharp eye on that and continue to really work on ensuring kids are in school.
Okay, thank you so much. That was my only question.
Trustee Cruz?
Thank you. Thank you for all of the information. So on slide 18, I had a question about, just because I always get questions about this over the years. So the 21st century, the district applies for that for all of the schools. So schools don't apply for that on their own, is that correct?
That's correct. There's a criteria that we receive, and then the grants office identifies the eligible schools to apply, and then we go through the process to apply on their behalf.
So when schools lose that funding, because my understanding is sometimes that happens, I haven't gotten anything recent, just like in the past. So the school used to have it and all of a sudden they're cut out. Is it because they no longer meet the eligibility criteria?
Most times it's a 3 to 5 year after school program or a grant. So if they no longer offer it through 21st century, that means the grant has expired. And then another group of kids, so you have schools rolling in and rolling off at different times.
That makes more sense. Okay. Slide 24, you mentioned 8 career advisors, and I didn't realize that this was a position we had in the district. So can you just tell me a little bit more about what they do?
Yes, so they work with students and go out through the campuses, ensuring we're required for every student to complete, the graduation plan. And so they're creating that plan in 8th grade, but then there's the monitoring throughout the 4 years of high school. And so they are working with the campuses, verifying that all of that information is available. They also work, as you can see, especially with the Marvy Finger Foundation. They have been a wonderful partner to us, increasing the number of scholarships that they give students who are pursuing career technical training at the high school. And so they're out working with those campuses, contacting those college access counselors on campuses, making sure that that information is there, that students are completing those scholarships.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions. Slide 31. I wanted to know, you mentioned the number of AP and IB exam registrations for 2021. Do you know how that compares to the number exactly a year ago and 2 years ago? And I realize you might not have that number off the top of your head.
I do not have that number on top of my head. We'll have to get that to you.
Okay, thank you. And then my last questions are on slide 37. And I don't know if you're wanting us to give you feedback now. My main concern is, and this is what I'm hearing from those working with the College Access Department, is if we end the first semester after the winter break, students who applied through the Common App have a very difficult time getting their transcripts and their ranking in time for that deadline. So I just wanted to share that. I totally support adding days to the calendar year, so thank you for that. Those are all my questions and comments. Thank you.
Trustee Guidry?
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Lathan, for this very comprehensive report. On slide 15, are these students, the 5 campuses that still have issues, are the students on those campuses right now in person?
So all of our campuses are open, have reopened. So these were the issues that we experienced during the storm. And then we had 2 campuses that we reopened this week, the last 2 of those campuses.
Okay, so the water issues at the 5 campuses, they have been already addressed?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And just so you know, I had an opportunity to visit Madison, and I think they have an AC unit water issue going on right now. I don't know if you've been contacted about that, because I don't see them on the list.
So this was just about major storms, and if they're normal every day HVAC and other issues that goes through the normal process. This was just highlighting some of the campuses that experienced problems during the storm.
Okay, this is just for the freeze. Okay, on slide 33, this is the social emotional learning. I was fascinated by one of the student comments tonight about counselors. Are counselors located on just some of the campuses?
Yes. Campuses, based on their school allotment, makes a decision of the positions that they purchase or that they post. And so that is a campus-based decision.
Okay. So it's based on the campus if they decide they need it?
Yes, at elementary and middle schools, yes.
Okay. What about high schools?
High schools have counselors, but they purchase the number that once again, they make that decision on how many counselors that they purchase.
Okay. And then finally, the Student Congress matter, we discussed having meetings with them and getting with them, and that was discussed tonight as well by the students. Have we scheduled any meetings to discuss their issues and have administration and the students come together?
So our Strategy and Innovation Department is working on that. So based on the directive at the board meeting was for administration to follow up with the students. I know the students have sent some emails requesting to meet with board members, but it was our understanding that administration would be working with them through the Strategy and Innovation Department to organize that. And at the same time, the emails are coming in requesting to meet with the trustees. So I just think that needs to be clarified, that the first step is starting with administration.
Yes, and that's exactly why I'm asking, because we are getting requests, and I would like to have some instruction from the administration on how we're going to proceed. And I also think it would be beneficial if the students would get some information on how we're going to proceed, because they're reaching out, and, you know, I think they just need to know if we're going to have a timeline or how it's going to proceed. Thank you, Dr. Lathan.
Thank you.
Trustee Hernandez.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Lathan. I was looking on page 30, and I like that North Forest has opened the full-service resource room. Do we know how campuses have this full-service resource room?
We can get that information to you, Trustee Hernandez.
Okay, thank you. Then I had another question on slide 33 about the social and emotional learning. I see that there are numbers on top of these boxes here. Is there a timeline for this? Is this from the school year in September, or not September, in October? Or is it 1 month, or what's the time frame here?
The school year.
It's the full school year.
Yes, from last August up to the present, or to February.
Okay. Okay, those were my only two questions. Thank you.
Trustee Dygard.
I forgot I shouldn't be using the other one. Can you hear me? No? Is this better? Okay. So on page 3, I know I've asked this question before, and I know I've been told we don't have an answer yet, but I'm going to keep asking. So there is some way that if a student has registered or enrolled in another school district, another Texas public school district, whether it's an ISD or a charter, that then we would somehow be able to know that that child is registered or enrolled somewhere else, correct?
Yes, the Leavers report, on our Leavers report.
Yes. So of this decline in our student population, do we know yet how many of those students have enrolled someplace else?
No, but we will pull that information.
So what I'm getting at here, you know, if we've lost, you know, what is it, about 8,000 kids, you know, if 5,000 are enrolled someplace else, but there are still 3,000 that are completely unaccounted for, you know, it's unfortunate if those 5,000 are off our rolls, but there are 3,000 kids to really zero in on and make sure they're somewhere in school somehow, or better yet, to bring them back into our home. So you're going to get that, right? Okay. And then my next question is page 31. The number of current AP exam registrations and current IB exam registrations for 2021, how do those compare to last year? You know, this is instructional continuity. Are we seeing a decline because of COVID, or is it about the same, or maybe better?
Trustee Cruz just asked that question, and I shared we would get that information for you. I don't have that on the top of my head.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much, Dr. Latham, for the presentation this evening. And thank you to all of the staff at HISD that was helping to get all of the facilities back up and running and all of the students back on learning, given the Arctic blast, and providing all of the supports and ongoing supports. We know that there are communities still without water, and thank you so much for your continued organized efforts. I have a question regarding slide 15 on the facility storm impact. Do we have an idea what costs we've incurred across these facilities and the other facilities that were impacted by the Arctic blast?
You have it.
So we don't have the full number yet. We're still under $2 million, I think, right now. Isn't that true, Alexis? So right now we don't even think we're going to meet the district's overall deductible for insurance. But right now we're under a $2 million cost. So not as high as it could have been.
And the deductible is
2.5.
2.5? Okay. Did we, I do recall reading, unfortunately, a lot of public entities across the state of Texas were on a variable rate utility plan, and they had to take out loans in the hundreds of millions range to be able to pay the light bill. Did we have any kind of thing like that happen here in HISD?
No, we're on a fixed rate plan. We're actually, our energy team is reviewing every bill at every campus. If we need to apply for any kind of credits, for anything, any fees or anything that may have gotten passed through, then we will file for those credits. But they are actually reviewing every single bill from last month and for this month to make sure that there weren't any major swings.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is, if we have any break fixes that were incurred during the Arctic blast, if there are some ongoing issues as a result of the initial break fix, are we able to claim those for insurance?
Only if it was well, not necessarily. If someone didn't fix something correctly, then that's on the vendor to come back and repair. Okay. But if it's an ongoing, then no, the ongoing cost would not be claimable under insurance. But it should be repaired under insurance by the vendor we have do those repairs.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is on the neighborhood super sites. How do we sign up to volunteer for those efforts?
You just show up, actually. If you show up, and then we will put you to work, but you do not have to, and that is including also when we host our big events at NRG, there's actually a table set up, and you just walk up, and we will put you to work.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Trustee Santos.
Thank you, President Allen and Dr. Latham, for the presentation. So on slide 30, Dr. Latham, is this a trauma-informed training that we were talking about, or is it the 160 workshops for the last 6 weeks? Is that what we were discussing the other day this week?
No, these are different workshops. As you can see, these are some of the, right below it are some of the titles of the different workshops that have been provided. Cyberbullying, digital conflict, keeping children safe online, supporting online learning.
Okay, and so out of these 160 workshops, how many attendees do we have?
Trustee Santos, we'll have to get your information on the attendees.
Okay, and then the trauma-informed workshop, where can that be found, or is there a link that we can share on our social media pages? Because I've been asked more and more about that.
It's on page 33 of It's on page 33 of the presentation. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, it says SEL bi-monthly workshops. It's right there.
Okay, and that will be, so I can share a link to those on my.
It's not a link that it shares out, that you share out publicly. These are workshops for staff members, so that's shared and not to be pushed out through a social media push out. That goes out to staff members. It's an internal link.
Okay, awesome. All right, Dr. Lisa, I'm just going to ask, because I know I've had teachers reach out and ask about that, so I don't know how that's communicated, but if we can stress that, that would be great. And now my second question would be to Trustee Guidry's point. Dr. Lathan, how much would it be to centralize percent of socioeconomic disadvantage? So they don't have to choose between Aspire intervention and an actual social emotional counselor.
Trustee Santos, I don't have that information handy, and so we would have to look at that as a part of a future referral. But we've made a note that that is your question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lathan. And that's it.
Moving to round two, Trustee Sung.
Thank you. I want to follow up on the social emotional learning conversation that Trustee Guidry and Trustee Santos have raised. Where are we, in the AE local, we updated it with a theory of action, and so there's language that the district defines and funds essential positions or functions that guarantee a basic standard for student health, safety, and well-being at every campus. Is social emotional learning part of what we're considering when we're defining that standard for student health, safety, and well-being? And where are we in defining those positions and functions?
We have not started as it relates to identifying those positions. I mean, we consider that as a part of student safety and well-being, and that's also been tied to our priorities over the past 3 years as we've looked at adding and actually strengthening the SEL department. So we've added additional staff there to be able to go out and support our campuses. We've added these additional resources, the curriculum, the trainings. And like I said, some of this stuff, this was in the works pre-COVID. We had to just, of course, to pivot during COVID and do more virtual. But these are things that we've been working on now for several years.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that because I'm hearing more and more from the community about how important that is for everybody, for students, teachers, parents even. So I'm really grateful that we have these kind of district-wide resources, and I'm really glad to see them being shared. Maybe at our budget workshop later this month, we can talk a little bit more about this definition of essential positions and functions, so that because that's really going more towards what's offered at each campus. And I look forward to hearing more about how we implement that language from the theory of action. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Seeing no other trustees in the queue, we will move on to our next activity. There is no open report from JG Consulting. We will move to the quarterly update from the Office of Internal Audit. Mr. Blackwell, please begin your presentation.
Good evening, Madam President, your fellow trustees, and Dr. Lathan. Board services, are you able to put my presentation on the screen?
It's on the screen, Mr. Blackwell.
Okay, I'm not able to see it from my laptop.
Mr. Blackwell, can you come down to the boardroom to do your presentation?
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Consideration of the minutes. While we're waiting on Mr. Blackwell, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the agenda review meeting held on March 4th, 2021?
So moved, Santos.
Second, Bluford Daniels.
Please vote. Nine for, 0 against.
Right here, page 4.
Okay, discussions and report items. A2, approval of board monitoring update, presentation of goal 3, progress measure 3. We are now ready to consider discussion and report items. Our first is item A2, approval of board monitoring update, presentation of goal 3, progress measure 3. Interim Superintendent Dr. Latham, we are ready for your update. Colleagues, please hold your questions until the presentation is complete.
Actually, Mr. Blackwell is here, so we'll go ahead with his presentation, if that's okay. Communications, if you can put up Mr. Blackwell's presentation, please. Thank you. There you go.
Oh, it is now. Okay, starting all over again. Good evening, Madam President, your fellow trustees, and Dr. Latham. I want to give you a quick update for the Office of Internal Audit. Please note that our intent is to do an update with you at least quarterly, and so this will be the first one for this fiscal year, or at least the calendar year. Let's see here, next slide. So here's our organization chart. At a high level, you can see that we're fully staffed on the internal audit side of the department, and we have some significant vacancies on the ethics and compliance side of the department. Most notably, the ethics and compliance senior manager position is of concern since it's been vacant since August. But we're working together as a team to try to remedy that situation as soon as we can. These are the board-approved goals for the Office of Internal Audit. Under the internal audit part of our office, we're working towards completing the board-approved audit plan. As it looks right now, we believe that we will get this completed by June, with, as a very minimum, having draft reports out to management to respond to. As you all know, we had an assessment last year that was conducted by the Institute of Internal Auditors. We had a generally conformance rating, which is the best rating we could get, or the highest rating. And in Section 2000 of the standards, there are certain areas that we need to improve on, and we'll give you an update on those areas as soon as we get to a slide related to that. There's another set of standards called government auditing standards. We refer to that as the Yellow Book. We're creating an action plan for getting assessed in a couple of years from now. We've got to prepare for that assessment, just like we did for the assessments from the IIA. Looking at ethics and compliance, we have several goals that the board approved. But since we showed you in the previous slide that we have some significant vacancies there, we're behind what we intended for a schedule for these goals. We have not prepared a compendium of predominant ethics and compliance issues, but we're not going to lose sight of this goal, but it may have to fall over into next year. We'll see. Same thing for the second goal, hire an ethics and compliance manager, plus the other 2 vacant positions. As for the E-rate audit, That is scheduled to start next month. So we look forward to getting that underway and getting some favorable results from that audit. Some of the notable accomplishments from 2018 to now, just to give the full board a complete picture of recent years, are the items that are listed before you. Last year, we got the Generally Conforms assessment rating of Generally Conforms, which is the highest rating we could get. In 2018, the board tasked us to create a dashboard for our audit, and the dashboard is in place. You will get a demonstration of the dashboard later on. As we said earlier, we are fully staffed on the internal audit side. We have some vacancies on the ethics and compliance side. We filled 9 vacant auditor positions. We have 10 auditors who are certified, 5 auditors who are on the path towards certification, and among our management team, everyone is certified. We've created professional development plans that can help us to stay current as well as to improve going forward. And we've been developing and implemented an audit strategic plan to help guide us towards the future. This slide represents the results of the assessment that we had. We got these results back in July last year. As you can see, we did a very good job with all of those green areas. Unfortunately, we had the one that's in yellow, this partially conforms, but as I said earlier, we're on a path towards turning those into green. And you'll see that on this slide, the specific yellow areas that we have to improve upon. And you can see the status chart in the upper right-hand corner. We've completed 3 of those already, and the other 4 are in process. This slide gives you a quick update on where we are with the audit plan. Overall, we're not where we need to be right now at this point in the year, but as I said earlier, we're confident that we will get the audit plan done by June with at least draft reports out to management. Trustee Dygard requested that we do an audit on donations to the district. So Trustee Dygard requested that we do an audit on donations to the district. And we have started that audit, and we expect to have a draft report for at least my review and management's review on March 26th. We'd like to have the audit completed by April 23rd. We had an audit dashboard that we created, and these are the different elements of it. It has audits, audit recommendations, there's the audit plan in there, requested internal audits, we follow those as well. And since we do some of our work through external firms, we track those audits in the dashboard as well. And in terms of status, our indicators as being complete, or there's in process, or they haven't started yet. The common management tool in the internal audit business is a tool called Teammate. I've actually been using it since the year 2000, and it's a very common tool. There are others as well. At HSD, we use Teammate, and Teammate version that we're using right now is no longer going to be supported, so we're going to be upgraded to what is called Teammate Plus. We plan to get that done by September. For ethics and compliance, these are the 3 positions that we talked about that are vacant. They've been vacant, as you can see, for quite a while. This poses a high risk to the district, in my opinion. We talked about this yesterday at the audit committee meeting at great length. This is the status of what's going on through the alert line. Sometimes it's referred to generically as a hotline. And if I may, Madam President, I'd like to bring up John Espinosa to further discuss this, if you don't mind. John?
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Madam President and trustees and Superintendent, my name is John Espinosa. I'm an auditor in ethics and compliance. It's my pleasure to be able to address you this evening just to give you a little bit of update on some of our work. As I mentioned yesterday in the audit committee meeting, the ethical tone of the district starts at the top, at the very top, with all of you and certainly with the superintendent. And it's our effort to help you in every way that we can to communicate what you want as a message to go out to the district and also to support you in every way that we can with any kind of conflict of interest alert, certainly helping with E-rate compliance. We monitor an E-rate hotline, and then we also work with an ethics point hotline. As Mr. Blackwell said, we're working on a compendium of important ethical issues for the district, and in the near future we'll be publishing an ethics handbook for the district. So we're looking forward to being able to get that out. But at this time, I'm here to give you an update on the ethics and, the Ethics Point hotline. I want to let you know that during the period of the COVID pandemic, we have incurred 210 cases or calls to the Ethics Point hotline. And of those, 70 cases, or 30%, were related to COVID. That's a fairly significant number, but I'm happy to be able to tell you that of those, only 2 remain open. The balance have been dispositioned to various high-level superintendents, area superintendents, or other high-level officers, and they've taken care of those. And then in addition of all of the different cases that have come into the hotline, we only have 22 that remain open, and all of those are in work. I would like to mention that it's possible that though the district has been very clear and very transparent in handling the COVID pandemic, maybe people have had some fear, possibly some misunderstanding of some of the communications, but those have all been reviewed and dispositioned, and we only have 2 that are in work. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, John. So, trustees and Dr. Lathan, this concludes my presentation. I'll certainly entertain any questions that you might have at this point.
Trustee Bluford-Daniels.
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of questions. On page 3, the organizational chart, and you discussed it a little bit further, but on page 3, it says that the legend says that these positions are based upon the facilities bond program.
I was trying to get okay.
Okay, now you can arrow to that page.
Okay. Okay, your question again, trustee, please.
Okay, based on your legend on page 3, the organizational chart, you said that there's, I saw that there's vacancies, and then you mentioned here on the organizational chart that there are 5 positions, in blue, and that's based on the facilities bond program?
Yes, we have 2 budgets, one from general fund and one from the bond fund.
Is that from 2012?
Yes, I believe it's the 2012 bond fund. For those items in blue, those are our construction audit team. And as you can see, they have a manager and 3 auditors plus an admin.
But I also saw the vacancies, and that's why I was.
The vacancies are just in ethics compliance. On the internal audit side, we're fully staffed.
Okay.
All of our authorized positions are filled.
Okay, and then on page 6, it says you talked about the 10 auditors who are certified and 5 auditors on a path towards CIA CPA certification. So those people are working for you now?
Yes, ma'am. So when I arrived in 2017, we had 10 auditors assigned. None of them were credentialed or certified. So we went down towards a path of having a certified team at the request of stakeholders from the superintendent staff back then, as well as some members on the board. And that was a marching order given to me to make sure that we have a certified team. So,
what is the date? What is the projection date? You said it's projected for them to be certified. The 5 that are projected to be certified, what is that? What is the projected date?
So the CIA and the CPA are 2 primary credentials within our career field. I happen to have both of those credentials, the CIA and the CPA. We have others that have that as well. But we're trying to get everybody on our team holding one of those 2 credentials. And we're providing resources, training opportunities, things like that to help them to get certified.
So would they be able to be utilized in any of those vacant positions, is what I was trying to get to?
They don't have a background in ethics and compliance.
Okay, so they'll still be open even after they get certified. And on page 4, you mentioned remedy. The areas that were identified as needing improvement in the department assessment. Remedy to me is subjective. What does remedy mean?
Well, we want to convert the partially conforms standards to generally conforms. So generally conforms is the best we can be. So the ones in green are they all meet the standards for generally conforms.
Okay, I think I understood.
So we have 3 grades. We have generally conforms, partially conforms, and does not conform.
Okay.
And so what you see there in the yellow, those are standards where we didn't measure up to generally conforms.
And that was in 2000. What is it 2004? What is it 2004 under management? The yellow.
Okay. So you can't hardly read this slide. But the
well, good luck. You can't read it. I can't read it.
all of the ones that have a yellow X beside them are the standards that we need to improve on.
Okay.
And we've completed 3 of those. I don't have a list in front of me of the 3 that we've completed, but 3 of the 7, we've in our opinion, we have gotten to where they need to be.
Okay, my last question. You mentioned about on page 10 that you're doing an audit completion date of April 23rd to update the donations to the district. Will this be made public, or will this include the names of the donors, etc.?
No, we won't mention names of people in
necessarily.
No, we will not issue names. We may have facts and numbers and things like that, but in terms of names of individual donors, we will not.
Okay. I just wanted some clarity on that. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Trustee Strong?
Thank you, Chief Blackwell, for this presentation and update. I think we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary, right, of your coming to HISD, and I think there's a lot to celebrate here. Really tremendous that we passed the IIA external audit, and the progress in certifications in your department is very impressive as well. So I'm really happy to see the progress there, and congratulations. I can't overstate, however, how concerned I am by the vacancies in compliance, particularly the senior manager position, but really all 3 positions, and how long those vacancies have lasted. As you've mentioned, that's a risk to the district. So since we had Chief Dimmitt here, and we have Dr. Lathan here as well, I want to ask everybody here, what can we do? What do you need from the board? from our superintendent, what support do you need in order for us to make sure that these positions get filled?
I will probably have a better answer after I meet with the chief of HR. We've agreed to sit down and talk to each other after the break and see if we can figure an action plan that will help us towards these issues that we're all concerned about. So probably at the next meeting, I'll have an update for you.
Okay, very good. Well, I look forward to hearing what that plan is and how we progress on this. Great. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Trustee Cruz?
Thank you, Chief Blackwell. So when you said you would have an update for us at the next meeting on your conversation with HR, do you mean like the next audit committee or the next board meeting?
Probably both.
Okay, I would like an update as quickly as possible. I know I expressed my concern yesterday. I don't want to beat the dead horse. You know, I think all of us share, and I know that you share that same concern with especially the chief position being open for so long. So, you know, as soon as you get some answers and then whatever we can do to support you, we're definitely can move that ball along. Okay. I also wanted to ask about the, I should have written the page down, on the partially conforms. So I think it's on slide 8. Would it be possible to get an update, you know, just have a standing agenda item at our audit committee meetings with an update and maybe a little more detail on, you know, how you went from partially conforms to meets for those?
Okay. Will do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay.
Trustee Guidry?
The feeling is mutual, Trustee.
Trustee Guidry?
Thank you, President Allen. Thank you, Chief Blackwell. I am going to just follow my colleagues with a concern regarding the positions that require filling. And let me ask you something. On the ENC, the senior manager, it says that the qualified candidate turned down the position. Was that in August that that candidate turned down the position?
The previous manager that had filled the role, he left the district in August.
And so that position has been vacant since that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And then how are we soliciting applicants for those positions? Is it via the newspaper? Is it, how do you have a search consultant looking for applicants for these positions?
So we work directly with the Human Resources Department and their team to advertise our positions. And they use typical sources like LinkedIn or other type of groups like that. Either last week or early this week, I gave them 2 professional organizations that have a Houston chapter that are directly related to ethics and compliance, and I asked them to advertise these vacancies there.
Excellent.
So we'll see if that helps.
Okay, excellent. And in the interim, is someone actually filling these positions, or
they're completely vacant?
So their responsibilities are somewhat going undone?
We're trying to, with our team that we have, we're just trying to cover them as best we can.
Okay.
So, like John was up here earlier, he's one of the team members who's taken on additional responsibilities, such as talking to you all tonight. That's an additional responsibility. But we're trying to hang in there as best we can.
So y'all are filling the gaps, basically.
We're trying as best we can, Trustee.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, President Allen. Chief Blackwell, so is the salary market rate that we're offering for these vacant positions?
I don't know. Chief Dimick, would you be willing to address that one for me, please?
Sure. Unfortunately, a lot of our salaries are below market rate. However, there's a range. So depending on the experience level of the applicant, the chief can take forward to the compensation committee to be reviewed and looked at for salary placement.
Okay, and so my colleagues on the audit committee, would that be within y'all's role to up the salary range? So that would go strictly to the compensation committee?
So, Trustee Santos, yes, the salaries are determined, set by the compensation manual. And within the compensation manual, it does discuss the range. And if it's above the midpoint, if the chief is requesting above the midpoint, it goes to the compensation committee, which is made up of cabinet chiefs.
Okay, so then we approve the compensation manual. So I guess that would be my recommendation from this board member is to have that compensation committee review why we're not paying market rates for job positions. And if we want to be competitive, we're going to have to offer that. And you know, it's unfortunate that Chief Blackwell has to operate not at full capacity. So I would just really, I want to put that in as a board referral now. So Chief Dimmitt, like, if we can get that on that yesterday, that would be great. So,
Trustee Santos, we are in the middle of the compensation study that was approved by the board. You'll get an update of where we're at with that at the budget workshop. So that's the appropriate venue. That's part of what we're paying for, is for them to review everything from job descriptions to market rates. So we are in the middle of that process with the company that was the approved vendor.
Okay, and I mean, we just haven't had an update. That was almost 2 years ago, that compensation study that we were supposed to have. So again, there is urgency behind this. So you know, I hope that we can have we can bring on this March 25th. So thank you so much. Those are all my questions.
Chief Dimmitt, can you address that? Because we did provide an update to the board as it relates to when we put out the original RFP, or Ms. Licata,
Yes.
if you could address one of you all, please.
Yes, ma'am. The original RFP did not garner us companies that could do the scope of the work that would be required for our large 27,000 employee multiple job description district. So we did give that update. I don't have the date in front of me. I can certainly send it. We gave that update, and what's been happening, it's a lot of the behind the scenes work. The group has taken our comp manual, all of our job descriptions. They have been doing a massive deep dive into comparisons with other districts, comparisons with other companies outside of districts. We just sent, so that was the first part, and that's a pretty large, comprehensive part of what happens when you have a group come in and take a look like they're looking. We just sent a survey out to all employees so they could actually tell us what they feel their job entails and also give input. And again, that will all be part of the update at the March budget workshop.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Chief Dimmitt. I remember asking for an update, and Dr. Lathan, I must have missed that because I've asked for it several times since then. So, again, thank you so much, Chief Dimmitt. I really, really look forward to that. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Thank you again for the presentation, Garland. And I know that my colleagues and I look forward to hearing the presentation before the board on a quarterly basis. We did get to have more conversation on this yesterday during our audit committee meeting. Given that we have a broad audience here, Garland, can you share with the public where you can find information regarding internal audit? There's an internal audit webpage on the HISD website. I know that if you search HISD internal audit, it will take you there. Otherwise, it's a / and something. Do you have that off the back of your?
I don't have the exact.
I got it. It's /
the exact link, I don't have it memorized, but you can access it from HISD's website. And then within that website, You'll be able to see all of the audit reports that have been issued. And if it's something that is extremely sensitive with high risk to the district, we redact those reports. We still publish them, but the information is so sensitive that we just redact them to protect the district. But we feel an obligation to at least publish them so the public does know at least the topics that we've looked at. We don't redact very much, but we do on occasions, particularly in the information technology space.
Okay, thank you. I have the website information up here. It's www.houstonisd.org/page, P as in Paul, AGE/139202. For anybody that would like to have more information regarding the Internal Audit Department, contact information, risk assessments, audit reports, audit committee information, and minutes as well. I'm glad that we're going to be getting an update on the compensation manual, Chief Dimmitt, at our March budget meeting too. And it sounds like you and Dr. Blackwell have some time scheduled to talk about next steps regarding filling these positions, how to navigate the rewriting job descriptions potentially, and visiting, I guess, a plan on how you're going to get the word out on these positions. Because I know what was expressed yesterday and what we've heard tonight is that, the board is of concern that this has been, these have been unfilled vacancies for such a long time.
And yes, ma'am, and if I could just clarify, it's not going to be an update on the compensation manual. Remember, that follows the budget. It will be an update on the compensation study. And yes, Chief Blackwell and I, we have many conversations about staffing and what HR can do to support his department. And we do have a follow-up meeting scheduled after the break, because I have some ideas, really thinking out of the box that I think could assist him better in maybe the organization of the department as well as the staffing. So he and I are looking forward to a conversation the Monday we get back from the break.
Good to hear, and we look forward to hearing an update on that at our next, as soon as we meet, I suppose. So thank you again.
Yes.
And I know for my colleagues on the board as well, we'll be getting these updates collectively every quarter, but in between, as we know, Mr. Blackwell, okay. Round two.
If there are no other trustees in round one, we will move to round two. Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Thank you, Madam President. And Garland, the reason why I'm asking all these questions, and thank you, Trustee Villaseca, for that information about that location. But I'm like this, there's so much information out there, you don't know you're missing it until you start looking for it or start asking questions, because there's so much to navigate. So I appreciate that. I personally like to see you. So I'd like to see you more than every 4 times a year, so that we can ask questions. I know that there was a meeting yesterday of the committee, and as I've said before, those committee members that's been working with you regularly, especially for the last 2 years that you haven't filled those positions, but those people who have been working with you regularly know the questions to ask and are able to address those. You just started having meetings yesterday with more trustees, and so we would like to be more engaged to know what's going on with the audit committee, because one thing I believe in, and that's saving money and turn over rocks, and I'd hope it would be more than every 3 months, because I know Trustee Hernandez is not here, but if it's a way to save $1, she's going to try to find it. So, but I'd like to have I'd like to have a projected date for full staffing. Since it's already been 2 years, as discussed by Trustee Santos, then I'd like to know if you have a projected date when you'll have full staffing.
I think full staffing projection will probably, maybe Chief Dimmitt and I can try to figure that out when we meet after spring break. I don't really have an idea now. Obviously, I would have hoped that these positions would have been filled by now. They've been vacant a long, long time. And the manager position, it says grade 32. It used to be grade 35. And then
Can trustees apply
well,
for these positions to get them filled? But yeah. I'd like to have just, it's like from what Santos has said, obviously I wasn't here. So if it's already been 2 years, then I'd like to know that in 6 months we'll try and have 1 filled, 2 filled, 3 filled, etc.
Okay, well, after we talk, after the break, maybe we'll have a better sense for that. I don't have a sense for it now. It's already been longer than I thought it would be. So we'll have a better feel, I think, afterwards.
Yes, and as I was saying earlier, I do have some ideas around the organizational setup that I think Chief Blackwell may find interesting and beneficial to his team, along with the support of HR. So I'm very confident if we can take a look at the bigger picture of that particular department, again, he and I working collaboratively, I think we can get those positions filled.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Saving money, we can put it somewhere else for the teachers and the students. That's all I'm saying.
I have some ideas to share with him. Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Cruz?
Thank you, President Allen. Okay, so Chief Blackwell, you just mentioned that it was downgraded from pay grade 35. Can you explain why?
I don't know why.
Can someone here answer that?
Yes, actually, if I could jog your memory a little bit, Chief Blackwell, we did take a look at the overall structure of that department, and that officer position in comparison to officer positions throughout the district, from what the job entails to the amount of people supervised, really wasn't in line. So looking at some cost savings at that time, the position was changed. So I'm going to go back to, though, even if a position is downgraded, if you find a candidate that is above that, we give a range, the minimum and up to the maximum. So sometimes the maximum of a range actually could be the minimum of the next pay grade up. So if you find that employee that has a potential candidate that has those years of experience, that's when you take it to the compensation committee and we look at it as a team. And so that's been in place for a really, really long time. Also creating a JAQ, a job analysis questionnaire, which we have also discussed. If you feel like, let's say you're closing one position to maybe give more responsibilities to another, it's actually a quite easy fix. You go through the process of the job analysis questionnaire. We compare your request to other positions in the district. And again, it's not just about managing people. It's also the depth of that particular job and what they have to do. But it's a process that HR works with the particular chief when you want to make that change. And our goal is to make sure it aligns with everything else in the district, to be fair to all employees and what their job entails.
So when the job is posted, does it list the pay grade number?
Well, yes, but that's usually irrelevant to most people. So in fact, we just discussed this the other day. For a while, the midpoint would be posted, and so people would come in and maybe be at the bottom and think, I was going to get this. So now we're changing it to the range is posted, and a note that says, with no experience, you start here, and then once the candidate applies, if that's who the chief wants, we start those conversations of, let's look at your years of experience to appropriately place them. And again, if the chief doesn't agree with the placement, we take it to the comp committee.
Okay. So a couple of quick things. I would like to ask at our March 25th meeting if we could get an update on what was resolved between the two of y'all. And I guess my concern is, because I hear what you're saying, Chief Dimmitt, is, if the pay grade is, if the range is posted, but you're saying, if you get a really highly qualified candidate, it could be above that range or at the top of the range. But
yes, ma'am.
But if there is a number there and someone that wants to apply, I just feel like that could dissuade someone. So that's my concern. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca?
Thank you. What I was saying earlier is I just wanted to flag for my colleagues too that there is an audit dashboard, and later on, Mr. Blackwell will show and his team will share more information about accessing that. So in between meetings, we'll be able to see progress to completion on the audits that the board approved for our audit plan for the year. Another thing, too, is talking about the ethics and compliance vacancies, especially the one where the pay grade was downgraded from pay grade 35 to 32 at the time. If there is still a process where it could possibly go back to grade 35, then that's what you guys are going to discuss?
Yes, ma'am. I have shared that information before with Chief Blackwell about the job analysis questionnaire process, but I'm happy to go through it with him again on Monday and also share some additional ideas I thought about that, again, I think could help him fill the vacancies and help streamline that organizational piece, which is a part of the role of the advice that HR does give, does give the various chiefs.
Okay. And again, normally, trustees wouldn't be asking so many questions about these positions because they're not our employees. However, the function of that particular department does impact trustees to some degree because they look at conflict of interest, campaign donations, things of that nature as well. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation again outside of it being so long that they've been vacant. Thank you so much. I have no additional questions.
Trustee Hernandez.
Hi, I just have 2 questions. Thank you so much for all the answers. I was just looking on the AppleTrack website, and it does only have 1 pay grade. So, and I know that I've used the website before, and it's fine with what that pay grade is. So that may it shares that. I'm not waiting from that point because of I don't know what my internet's not working. It's working now?
It is now.
Update.
Thank you, trustee. Now moving to discussions and report items. A2. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell, Chief Blackwell.
You're welcome. Thank you for
And
having
we look
me.
forward to seeing you about the dashboard.
Okay. No, tonight. Next month or tonight?
Not tonight. Tonight.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Okay, A2, approval of board monitoring update, presentation of Goal 3, progress measure 3. We are now ready to consider discussion and report items. Our first is item A2, approval of board monitoring update, presentation of Goal 3, progress measure 3. Interim Superintendent Dr. Lathan, we are ready for your update. Colleagues, please hold your questions until the presentation is complete.
Excuse me, point of order, Trustee Allen. We should be accepting, not approving this item.
And when she calls for the motion, it'll be accept.
Is it Dr. Matney?
All right, thank you, Dr. Lathan.
Thank you, Dr. Matney.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan, President Allen, and trustees. This evening, we'll be discussing Goal Progress Measure 3.3. So as a reminder, Goal 3 indicates that the percentage of graduates that meet the criteria for CCMR as measured in Domain 1 of the State Accountability System will increase 8 percentage points from 63% for 17-18 graduates to 71% for 22-23 graduates reported in 2024. This chart outlines as a reminder our Goal 3 data points, and again, the blue line indicates the state data points, The purple is when we remove the military and the half point for CTE, which are the new rules regarding accountability. So we're looking at that operational data, that purple line, and then our targets for the next 4 years are the red lines. So a couple of questions came up last month, and I wanted to address and be able to put these on the slides as a clarification around our students who are included in the CCMR indicators. So what we do is we look at as our denominator, the number of annual graduates. Those are our graduates that actually receive their diploma at the end of any given year. So those are our annual graduates. And then our numerator is out of those students who met at least one of the CCMR indicators that we have discussed previously. So graduates that meet multiple, as we've discussed in the past, are still only included once. So they may meet the indicator for an AP examination, as well as for SAT, as well as getting an industry certification, as well as enrolling historically in a dual credit course and receiving credit there. So they would only count one time, regardless of their grade, the number of their grade accomplishments. And of course, the data does lag by 1 year, as graduation data typically does in our accountability system. So the next slide shows a reminder of all of those ways that students can achieve a CCMR indicator point. We have our 2018 data as well as our 2019 data indicated there, and then the percent of our graduates meeting each one of those for those 2 years, just as a reminder. So moving on to progress measure 3.3, it states the percentage of students who by the end of grade 11 have demonstrated career readiness through an industry-based certification will increase 8 percentage points from X in 2019 to Y in 2024. We still have those X's and Y's there, even though that language is cleaned up in a K item also on the agenda. So when we look at the specific data points, we see our 2018-19 data there, as well as 19-20. The 11th grade bar is the blue bar, and that is how we're measuring ourselves, is the students by 11th grade, because that gives a predictor for, as we're moving into 12th grade, pieces that we need to do programmatically in order to ensure student success. So in 2018-19, that number was 0. As we discussed last week, the number, how the industry-based certification data was collected in 2018-19 did not afford us the ability to put that data in there for the various grade levels. You can see that in 18-19 you've got 12th grade data in there, but not that 11th grade data or 10th grade data, and that is because we did not collect that data based on the grade level where the student achieved the certification. It was just if they achieved one at some point in high school. So now that we are collecting that data differently, it's PEIMS reportable by grade level, we can now move forward with looking at that data by grade level, as we did in 1920. So we were at 10% in 11th grade for 1920, and so we want to continue that and scale up to that 18, meaning that 8 percentage point gain by 23-24. So we are on track for this progress measure, and excited to get to that 18 by 23-24. When we look at our students with disabilities and our data for that population, we can see in 1920 we were at 7, whereas overall we were at 10 in 1920. And then our grade 3, goal 3 summary for 1920. We put this in because tonight is our final wrap up of the 3 progress measures around goal 3, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. And we wanted to be able to demonstrate to you for all students as well as these student groups, what % of students have met each of these indicators in one summary slide. And then percent of students, so we have 39% of our students meeting either 3.1, 3.2, or 3.3 in one of those areas overall as a district by 11th grade. This next slide shows the similar data, but by race ethnicity group. And then next steps, our Innovation and Post-Secondary Programming Department is looking into adding and refining programs to meet new state standards. Looking at students completing those personal graduation plans that we look at for 8th grade and then continuing up as we get new students enrolling in high school, ensuring that those personal graduation plans are completed and then utilized in scheduling. And our career and technical education instructional coaching is also assisting with increasing opportunities for students and proficiency for our students, especially on industry-based certification exams. And then also our relationships with our industry partners are critical when we're talking about industry-based certification exams, understanding the critical pieces that are going into those industries and in support for our students in those courses, and then scaling up again to those exams. And that concludes the presentation for 3.3.
We are now ready for comments or questions from trustees. We will do 2 rounds of 2 minutes each. If an additional round is desired, that can be done with the motion, second, and board vote. Trustee Song.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you very much, Dr. Lathan and Dr. Matney, for this presentation. So with regards to Progress Measure 3.3, I want to make sure I understand. The data you are reporting to us is last year's data? Are we looking at juniors who are juniors in the 1920 school year, their data?
Correct. So on slide 7, that blue bar that had the 10 on it, they were juniors in 2019-2020.
Okay. So this is different than I'm used to for progress monitoring. So I understand that the College Career Military Readiness Indicator from the state is always looking at the previous year data. But here, even in our progress monitoring, we're going to be, as we progress monitor 3.3, we're going to be looking at last year's data. Is that right?
Correct. So when you look, and let's take 3.3 specifically, the vast majority of industry-based certification exams are given in the summer after the courses are taken. So there would not be a way for us to report what's happening right now because the exams have not been taken. So our most recent data set for our industry-based certification exams are from the summer of 2020, and that's the 5, which is the red bar for our sophomores. So 5% of our sophomores took one and received a passing score in the summer of 2020. Then we've got the 10% of our juniors from last year, and then our seniors were 14, our graduates were 14%.
Okay, thank you. And then the typical, I don't have our monitoring calendar, but you will be reporting to us on Progress Measure 3.3 regularly in March, and is there another report date as well, or is it once a year in March?
For 3.3, it's just once a year in March.
Okay. I guess the concern that raises for me is typically with progress monitoring, we have a chance to see whether we're on track or not, right? And at this point, the data is baked, right, from last summer. So what's the reason for reporting it to wait until March to report it to us? Does it take that long for the data to come out?
No, it really is about how Lone Star governance, the rules around you can only report out 2 goals each time. And so when we look at time of year and we go to looking at our Renaissance. We want to make sure our beginning of year Renaissance is reported out as close to that beginning of year, knowing that we're reporting out the Renaissance multiple times a year. So our first priority in calendaring that look at the Renaissance data points first, and then filling in those other pieces along the way. It's not ideal. We would love to bring it to you as soon as we get it each time, but in order for y'all to meet our governance requirements, we space it out that way.
Okay, and I understand those LSU requirements require that we don't look at too many goals in any given month. Okay. All right, well, thank you. I'm glad to see that we're on track, and I'll look forward to future reporting on this. Thank you.
Trustee Cruz?
Thank you, Dr. Matney. And Dr. Lathan, I know there have been large investments of resources into career and technical education and IBC certifications, and I know this is part of the reason you asked for that teacher certification flexibility in the district innovation. So I applaud the efforts that you and your team have done to invest in this area. I have a few questions, of course. Where are you seeing the most growth, either by area, by school, in terms of these certifications?
So we look at overall the percentages because each campus has different programs, and so our increases have been in level 1 and level 2 certifications in various career areas, and so that's what we look at. So if it's a welding program, but it's only geared at certain campuses, then the growth is about the program itself, not necessarily the particular school, because you look at the various programs that each campus or Barbara Jordan has.
Okay. So I wrote my questions down based on the pages of the report, not necessarily the presentation. So I guess it's packet page 27. It's page 6 of the report. And this is about students with special needs. How are we addressing the fact that very few students with special needs are completing industry-based certifications?
So we've looked at additional supports to those campuses where the students are located, ensuring that we're providing campus course advisement to those students. We've looked at additional supports through also tutoring and support, encouraging students to enroll in those courses, encouraging the staff members that work with those students to make sure they are aware of the options available for students with disabilities. And so that's a focus area that we've really tried to focus on this year. And it actually started a little bit before, and like I said, COVID has made it a little bit more difficult because when you have students virtually versus face-to-face, but that's what we've tried to do so that we can increase those numbers. And then we're looking at it across campuses to see how many students with disabilities are actually enrolled in those various courses.
Is that typically part of a student's IEP?
Not necessarily part of the IEP. I mean, because the IEP is based on what the disability area is, and so it's not necessarily a part written into their IEP that it focuses on a particular CTE course unless they need some type of on-the-job training, and then that's a different type of situation.
So I guess I'm trying to think of like if a student is, their junior or senior year, and I know part of the special ed process is to make sure that there's a plan after they leave, right? So could this be part of their IEP? I mean, I don't know enough. I'm just wondering.
So you don't write that necessarily into the IEP, just like you don't write staff names into an IEP.
Okay.
So when you're writing, and as you think about career placement and opportunities beyond high school, and they write the transition plan, they focus on the skills that a particular student, but you have to remember, a student with an IEP could just be a student that that needs speech services or receives speech services. So they are just in all, it could be advanced placement courses. All their courses could be advanced placement, but we still are looking at those numbers to see. And that's also a balance that you have to think about. There are some students that have an IEP where they've chosen a particular track. And so it's not necessarily that we're trying to block or limit. You have to also look at the overall picture of that particular student and then an actual disability of the student to see, okay, why do we have a low percentage of students with this particular disability enrolling or not enrolling in particular CTE courses?
Okay, thank you. And then on page 8, so packet page 29, you mentioned CTE advisors and CTE instructional coaches. Are these the same role or different?
Right, remember I was talking about in the instructional continuity presentation, we were saying they go out and support those campuses, ensuring all the students are completing those personal graduation plans. And then also that, I believe that was also one of the bullets on the presentation, where they're also providing supporting coach. No, that's a different set of people. Let me get it right. There's a different set of people as it relates. They are in the CTE department around the instructional coaching to support CTE teachers.
Okay.
To ensure that they have what they need to address the needs for students.
So are CT advisors and CT, are they the same position, I guess?
They're different positions.
They're different okay.
Positions.
And are these like CTE teachers that have moved into those positions? Like, I was just trying to understand.
They're formal, they could have previously been a CTE teacher.
Okay.
So they might have that certification, or they could be coming from industry. They were able to be hired in a particular position, but they have background or experience in that particular area.
And have you seen an increase, once these positions, I don't know how long these positions have existed, have you seen a positive impact on, an increase in IBC?
We've seen an overall increase as it relates to our overall CTE program due to the investment that we've made, and that's evidenced by the number of students that are graduating with those level 1 and level 2 certifications, and the expansions of the various programs that we've added with our industry partners.
Okay. On that same page, packet page 29, you mentioned an advisory council. Is this a district entity? It talks about like 100 different partners in that council. It's kind of towards the bottom. It's on the third paragraph, I think.
Various industry partners that we have, so that we meet with them. They're providing us input. We're looking at statistics around the careers that are in most demand, or careers that might be kind of exiting where you don't see the growth or the salary potential. And so we meet with them, and that's how we also form additional partnerships, or there might be internships that might be available, or job shadowing, or just being able to pull speakers to present to our students.
Okay, that's helpful. So my understanding is that CTE has become more rigorous because of the state accountability standards. Do you feel like the district has faced challenges because of this, like growing pains, right? When you try to like raise a standard. Okay.
No, I mean, we were already actually exceeding the standard prior to the state putting more emphasis on CCMR in the previous legislative session.
Okay, thank you. And then, okay, I'll hold for round 2. Thank you.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Mine really is one short question as it relates to CTE, and you mentioned about the careers most in demand. In light of the ice storm, are we considering more plumbing careers and air conditioning, refrigeration, and wood shop? I mean, because the demand for plumbers is just over the top, and we have to be able to be flexible and adjust. We don't have scuba divers this go around for flooding, but we do need plumbers. So I'm just curious if we've talked about expanding that program, because obviously the need is there.
So we haven't drilled down to a specific or individual program. We've talked about that. So we overall, as we look to add additional programs, I mean, we look at the big picture, and I definitely agree plumbers are needed. But those industry standards reports is what kind of drives us. And for example, construction is still a big one. And that's what, yes. And so that's what we're looking at. But it doesn't mean that plumbing in that next report that comes out won't be at the top of the list.
Trustee Dygard.
Thank you. On packet page 24, so the report, not the PowerPoint, we're looking at last year's data. I understand why. Is there anything to indicate an enrollment this year in these programs that we may not be on track? I mean, because the kids are only going to be taking these tests in the summer if they've completed our program during the school year, right?
Correct.
So are we confident, what does the data look like? Do we have as many or more kids enrolled in those programs this year headed towards taking those certifications this summer, or do we think some are going to drop off because of COVID and the challenges of in-person instruction?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, so that's something we would have to look at. I mean, we have been concerned about enrollment overall, and so we would have to compare the numbers of students enrolled this year to a previous year.
And we're not going to be monitoring this report again for another year?
Correct. I'm sorry. Dr. Matney just addressed that because of the fact that we
No, I understand. I understand why. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. So when
we will, however, Trustee Dygard, we will have at the end of each year. So when we do our in a regular year, we have STAR scores. So when our final CCMR results come out, we will have that final report for Goal 3 as a whole, where we'll be able to see class of 2020 and where they actually hit this mark in September.
And so if we're the goal for 2021, our current 11th graders that would be taking this assessment in between school years, you're saying we would have that data, though, by the annual report in the fall? Is that what I'm understanding with the goal?
The fall will just be the graduates. So the fall will be the accountability data for the overall goal. It won't be the 11th grader specific.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to need to chew on this for a bit. Okay, yes, if we could have that data, that would be helpful, Dr. Lathan.
Trustee Flynn Villaseka.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Lathan and Dr. Matney, for your presentation tonight. I just have two questions. One of them is on slide 6 or packet page 15. You may have already covered this, so but if not, what do we still have the X and the Y? Is it because there's something that's changing from the state? This how this is being measured? Is that what's going on there?
No, actually, we had the X and Ys up there. It was just a logistics issue. AE Local has not officially been approved. That's on for y'all to approve for second reading tonight. And so because it had not officially been approved with the X's and Y's in there, we didn't want to put that up on the PowerPoint with the X's and Y's in there yet.
Okay. If that is to be approved, what would that X and Y be?
The X for 3.3 will increase. It'll actually go to 18 percentage points from 0 in 2019 to 18 in 2024. So you can see that. You can see the actual numbers in essence on slide 7, which is packet page 16. It would go from that. The reporting of 0 up to that 23-24, you see the final 18, the final red dot of 18. So we're anticipating increasing 18 percentage points.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing is too, on packet page 23, I like how the information, the data is disaggregated. And I'm wondering if this can be part of the main presentation as well, moving forward.
So one of the reasons we do not put this slide specifically on the PowerPoint presentation is just how busy it is. And so we just worried visually how busy the actual chart is. We could look at dividing it up somehow to make it a little more visually appealing to be in the actual presentation. But that's really the only reason we haven't put it in a slide. Is it's just very busy.
Okay, and for HB3 requirements, we're supposed to have it disaggregated in this fashion. Is that right? Okay. So just
for the goal, yes.
For the goal,
not right? For the progress measures necessarily, but we do it anyway because we want to make sure it's there.
Okay. All right. Well, I do appreciate seeing the breakdown like that. I know that there is a lot going on, so perhaps it could be color-coded or split up somehow. But if we are doing it for the goal 2 and that there's an attempt to do it here, we have the information as backup. For public consumption as well, hopefully we would be able to include it. Thank you.
Trustee Cruz, you mentioned you wanted to do a round 2, but you didn't put money in.
Yes, please. Oh, I forgot to put my name in the queue. Should I go ahead? Okay, thank you, President Allen. So I know for college matriculation and completion, we use the National Student Clearinghouse to track. Is there anything comparable for career, like tracking post-secondary success for students that are in a career track?
Did you hear the question, Dr. Matney?
I did. There is not that I know of. Chief Cruz may know of one more specifically, but there's not a general repository. I know that there's the Texas Workforce Commission, which does have data within the state of Texas as far as trades, but he may have some additional data that I'm unaware of.
Employment. A lot of it has, of course, to do with privacy matters and tracking that kind of information. However, there have been some reports that have been done in the past that have looked at kind of long-term career prospects for HSD graduates. I'd really highly encourage that you look at a study that was done by HERC that looked at kind of 10 years out, what our students were doing, where they were employed, even had things like incarceration levels and et cetera. A really interesting report. But there isn't readily available data, at least not to our knowledge, here in Texas.
Could we get that report sent to us?
We could look for it, yes.
Okay. Is that something that, we've thought about as a district, like how to track that post-secondary success for our students?
It's a major challenge, I'll be honest with you, when you're talking about career prospects, right? Because it's identifying where the students are and then getting that kind of information. I think everyone's struggling with trying to figure that out, but I think there's a keen interest across the board. And there are some other states that I think are taking more progressive stances around getting that data for their alumni.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And then on packet page 30 of the report, is this for class of 2019, these percentages?
I'm scrolling. Page 30?
Yes, packet page 30. It's a summary data.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then my last question is, I always have a concern about kids getting stuck in a certain track or a certain trajectory. Like if a student, their junior or senior year decides, I don't want to do CT or I don't want to do IB, is it too late for them to switch into another trajectory?
They can change. I mean, it's all about course enrollment. It might not necessarily lead to a level 1 or level 2 certification, or it might not necessarily lead to a course with the IB program. It will not lead to a diploma, IB diploma, but they can register for any course that they choose.
Okay.
And if I may add, Dr. Lathan, I think it's really interesting to look at the data around the number of our students who are participating in CT coursework, because I think historically in the past people thought of kind of 2 major tracks.
Yeah.
But now we have a significant number, and we've seen over the past years significant increases in participation. So it's kind of I think it's somewhere, and don't quote me on this, but it's over like 30,000 students that are in CT pathways in the district, and over 40,000 that are enrolled in a CT course. Right. So it's not like there are groups of students that are doing CT versus who are not. And to the earlier point, there's a level of rigor that we're seeing across the board for all students.
Okay, that's really good to know. So is it possible for kids to be both an AP student and a CTE student?
Oh, definitely. That happens all the time. I mean, that's what we encourage, and that's what we're building.
That's what I would hope.
Whether it's AP or dual credit, IB has a career program that we now have in the district as well, a career-based program. So it's we call it kind of internally our steak and lobster, right? It's not one or the other. We kind of try to give both to all of us.
Yes. Okay, I'm really glad to hear that. Kudos to the district on that. Thank you.
Sure.
Trustees, we are now ready to vote to accept the presentation. May I have a motion? Please vote. 9 for, 0 against. We are now ready to discuss item L1, investment report. We are ready to move in the agenda items. Consideration of the superintendent's agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that item B1 is new. The attachments to add item A2 and I4 are new. Agenda item D2 and its attachments were revised. Items H1 and I4 were revised, along with the attachments to agenda items I3 and I4. The attachment to L1 was replaced. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. Consideration of items held for abstention and/or discussion. We will now consider items held for abstention and/or discussion. Each month, all action items begin on the consent agenda. If a trustee would like an item held from the consent, they need to notify the district chief of staff, Sylvia Tran, by 8 a.m. on Monday, prior to the voting meeting. As a reminder, trustees, everyone had an opportunity prior to this meeting to submit additional questions after agenda review to the administration. The Q&A document has been updated to reflect the additional questions. The updated Q&A was sent to all trustees and has been posted on the district website. The trustees requested the following items to be held from the consent agenda: D2, D3, G2, and I1. Project 21901 RFQ, Real Estate Broker Services. Project 161025C, RFP, District-Wide Instructional Software. Project 161047C, RFP, Tutorial Services for Students. Project 161048E, RFP, Teacher and Staff Development. Project 1722C, RFP, Supplemental Curriculum and Materials. And Project 170202, RFP, Supplemental Curriculum and Materials. For each item of discussion, we will do 2 rounds of 2 minutes each. If an additional round is desired, that can be done with a motion, second, and board vote.
Dr. Allen?
Yes, dear.
So I want to pull E2 off the consent agenda. Do I make that motion now or later? Is there any interest from my colleagues for a bio break?
Okay, we'll take a bio break and we'll come back at 7:45.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we'll handle E2 when we get there. Thank you.
Thank you. First item held for discussion is agenda item D2. Approval to waive certain requirements of board policy DNA local in light of the COVID-19 impact on normal district operations. Any questions from trustees? Oh, we do a motion first. May I have a motion?
So moved, Sung.
I didn't hear what you said, Dr. Allen.
Who is that? Who? What did she say? Oh, I'm sorry. I asked for a motion and a second. We got a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues?
Just that I want to separate E2 from consent.
Oh, we have it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Allen.
Anyone or D2?
Oh, sorry.
You have a question, Trustee Cruz?
Yes, we're on D2, correct? Okay.
Trustee Cruz?
Thank you. So last month, the board was asked to waive student performance as a category for teachers' annual ratings. This month, the board is being asked to have teachers carry over their ratings from last year and not hold summative conferences. I believe summative conferences are important for any profession. It is a chance for self-reflection and to receive feedback. All teachers, even the strongest ones, benefit from evaluation, not despite teaching in COVID times, but because of it. If we are doing it for the sake of checking off the box, then I think we need to reflect upon the purpose and the tool. Our teachers have been under immense pressure this year and have pivoted to teaching in person and virtually simultaneously. My hat's off to them. And I would say let's take this opportunity to have discussions between appraisers and teachers of how we carry our learnings on from this school year. And at the very least, I do not support adding in teachers with ratings of 2s. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Please vote. Did you take that? You take it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for, and 1 against. Our next item here for discussion is agenda item B3, approval to waive a requirement of board policy DNB local in light of the COVID-19 impact on normal district operations. May I have a motion? So moved. May I have a second? Second. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Trustee Cruz?
So we are asking students to perform, and we are grading them just as we would in any school year. And I believe that we should have a way to monitor student growth. Do we need to adjust what we are measuring when we evaluate principals? Yes. The board goals we adopted this year were to ensure that we maintained where students were at the very least in the 2019-20 school year. I believe we need to rethink metrics, not completely throw them out.
Are there any other comments on D3? Please vote. Seven for, 2 against. Our next item here for discussion is agenda item E2. Approval of recommendations from the naming committee for the naming or renaming in connection with the 2012 bond program of areas or portions of the Kinder High School for the performing and visual arts. Second? Are there any comments or questions? Trustee Santos.
Thank you, Dr. Allen and Dr. Layton. My question, I guess, is to legal. I I support this, the idea behind this, but are we following our naming policy when we are working on this, on E2?
Trustee Santos, are you addressing that to me, Lisa McBride?
Yes,
Lisa
McBride, Ms. McBride.
Based on the factual assertions that are in the agenda item, yes, there are two procedures under CW local, and one is to go through a naming process when it comes to naming part of a facility or a whole facility after someone who is living or deceased. But there are two processes, and the process that was followed here was the process of going through the committee process.
So you want, can you, Lisa, can you support that policy?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
This is in regards to E1. I'm sorry. This is in regards to E1 and E2. We are, as our legal counsel, you're saying that we've adhered to all our naming policies with this. We're within HISD's and our board policies and how we're doing it. As far as the contribution.
So I'd have to allow administration to answer that from a factual standpoint, but based on the assertions in the agenda item, they do comport with respect to your CW local. The contribution that you're talking about, I think it's $1 million. That is a second way of doing this. There is another way of going through the committee process, two different processes. This utilized the committee process under CW local. But if you have specific questions about factually, like what who was on the committee, what the committee was composed of in terms of whether that complied with CW local, I can't answer that. All I can answer is based on the assertions in the agenda item, because of course I wasn't part of the committee.
Okay. Ms. McBride, again, Dr. Layton and Lisa, Ms. McBride, I am absolutely in favor of both E1 and E2. I just want to make sure that we are following our own district's policy. And if the administration and board council says that we are and we are legally within our bounds, then I will vote for this. But if not, I would otherwise.
And the only thing that I would ask is just if administration would not mind confirming just factually. I've confirmed based on the actual averments that are in the item.
So we are confirming, and we did go through the legal process before we placed the item on the agenda, yes.
Any other comments? Any other comments? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any other comments for E2? Please vote. Nine for, 0 against. Our next held for discussion is agenda item G2, consideration and approval of Texas A&M University and Houston Independent School District Student-Teacher Partnership for 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023 and 2023 to 2024 school years. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Are there any comments or questions on G2? Seeing none, please vote. Eight for, 1 abstention. Our next item is agenda item I-1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. We are holding from consent agenda several projects associated with agenda item I-1. The first project being held is to accommodate Trustee Dygard's abstention. 21-9-1 RFQ, real estate broker services. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second, Santos.
Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues?
Just to clarify for Trustee Dygard, it was actually item G2.
Oh.
Correct?
I abstained from G2 with A&M because of a conflict, yes. But I have a question on this one because I may have a conflict, but it looks like I may not anymore. Cushman Wakefield is no longer a part of this item. So it's packet page 77?
Yes.
Okay.
They are no longer part.
Okay, so I can therefore vote on this item and I don't have to abstain, right, Ms. McBride?
So I think let me make sure. I think the entire I item is on the consent agenda. There have just been specific projects that have been pulled. And so I think the thing that you're voting on now is actually a project that may have been pulled. Has project 210901 been pulled?
Yes, she pulled.
I mean, is it no longer to be voted on?
Just the only, Cushman Wakefield is the only vendor that we scratched through. The rest of the vendors.
Got it, yes.
Sorry, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Please vote. Trustee Santos? We have 9 for, 0 against. We're holding several other projects associated with agenda item I-1, beginning with 16-10-25C RFP, district-wide instructional software. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Sung.
Do you have a second?
Second, Santos.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues on 16-10-25C? Trustee Cruz?
Thank you. So I believe in autonomy, and I believe schools should have the ability to use the vendors that meet the needs, the individual needs of their campuses. I also believe that we should have checks and balances in terms of how the services or resources that any vendor provides helps move the needle forward and ensures that children are learning and getting them as close to the goals that the board has set as possible. We exist as a district to ensure that our students learn and reach their potential, and we can't do that if we are not objectively evaluating how we spend our money. Thank you. And this is the same comment for all of the other I items. Thank you.
Any other comments? Please vote. All of them? Okay. Trustee Hernandez? Oh. Okay. 7-4, 2 against. Our next project is 16-10-46-7C, RFP, tutorial services for students. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second, sir.
Trustee Cruz says she has the same comment for all of the items. Please vote.
I was in the queue to speak, Dr. Allen.
You want to speak?
I'm ready to vote, but I just want to echo what Trustee Cruz pointed out. I 1000% agree with Trustee Cruz, and we do need better checks and balances so that we can honor taxpayer dollars and make sure all of those dollars are getting as close to the classroom as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you. 8-4, 1 against.
2 against.
7-4, 2 against. Did we correct the script?
The screen that was showing.
Oh.
6-1. 2 against.
Okay. Our next project is 16-10-48-E-RFP, Teacher and Staff Development. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Same comments for Cruz and Santos? Please.
Correct, yes.
Please vote. Seven, 4, 2 against. Our next project is 17-2-2C, RFP, Supplemental Curriculum and Materials. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second, Santos.
We have the same 2 comments. Are there any other comments from the colleagues? Please vote. We have 7-4 and 2 against. Our next project is 17-02-02, RFP Supplemental Curriculum and Materials. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. The same comments, Cruz and Santos. Any additional comments? Please vote. Six, 4, 3 against. We're now ready to consider the balance of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus? Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? If not, please vote. You have Santos? Okay. We have 9-4, 0 against. Did we have any items in closed session? Where are they? Who's reading? We are now ready to consider items discussed in closed session. Are there any motions?
I move that the board authorize the district to settle the matter of Mayra Alexandra Guzman Perez versus HISD in the 113th Judicial District Court of Harris County, Texas, cause number 2018-85626, on the terms discussed in closed session effective March 12, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second, Santos.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Nine for, 0 against. Next motion.
I move that the board authorize the district to settle the matter of Mark Wright versus HISD in the 113th Judicial District Court of Harris County, Texas, cause number 2018-80667, on the terms discussed in closed session effective March 12, 2021.
You have a second?
A second, Santos.
We have
Second,
a motion
Santos.
and a second. Please vote. Nine for, 0 against. Next motion.
I move that the board approve a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts without district consent under sections 21.105C, 21.160C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code as discussed in closed session, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to submit a written complaint to SBEC to impose sanctions effective March 12, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second, Santos.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Eight for, 1 against. Next motion.
I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically that the board approve proposed determinations of continuing term and probationary contracts, approve end of term terminations of probationary contracts, that the board approve proposed non-renewals of term contracts, and that the board approve issuance of fourth-year probationary contracts, and that the board authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to provide notice of the same, that the board approve separation and release agreements, that the board approve withdrawals of contract recommendations, and that the board approve issuance of final orders on contract terminations and non-renewals as discussed in closed session effective March 12, 2021.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Eight for, 1 against. Next motion.
I have no further motions.
We're doing the hearing of the community? We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we normally hear from our community. We're glad you have joined us online today in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is operating at a reduced capacity, and the board auditorium is closed. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from our community. In order to have your voices heard by the HISD School Board of Education, you must have registered to speak with the Board Services Office by 9:30 a.m. today. Speakers should have left a phone number when registering. District staff will be calling registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual waiting room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of the district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to board services via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 19 members of the community who have registered to speak or submitted comments to be read aloud during this portion of the meeting. Comments shall be limited to 300 words or 2 minutes each. Please refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Abusive statements and or threats of confrontation are not permitted. Any comments in violation of these guidelines will not be read. Chief Dimmitt.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Daniel Sines. Go ahead and begin. Daniel Sines, please begin.
President Allen and trustees, my name is Daniel Sines, and I sit as board chair to ask for your help to continue the relationship currently at risk between HISD and Young Learners. This was put at risk last November when the board voted not to continue its contract with Young Learners. President Allen, it should be comforting to know that HISD has partnered with Young Learners for the past 20 years. Since beginning its work with HISD, Young Learners has become a pre-K 3 and 4 institution that has taught over 20,000 students. Trustees, funding for Young Learners is a unique and innovative way of utilizing taxpayers' money. Young Learners not only sustains itself, but provides a surplus of funds that goes back to HISD and provides in-kind funding to amazing programs such as Avante, Gulf Coast Community Services, Harris County Department of Education, and other Head Start and daycare centers. Young Learners employs 80 individuals, 70 of which are teachers, certified and HISD qualified teachers, many of whom are ESL teachers. We serve Title I students throughout the county area. Pre-COVID, we taught over 14 per year, and during COVID, even as attendance dropped district-wide, we were still able to adapt to a new style of teaching and taught 700 students this school year alone. President Allen and trustees, I implore you to work with your superintendent, Lathan, to have her waive the MWBE certification, one that does not truly apply in this situation, and continue this 20-year legacy that HISD and Young Learners has had. The MWBE certification were put into place to create an equal playing field with those businesses wanting to work with HISD. Young Learners embodies this same philosophy by working with institutions that meet our kids where they are and offers them the opportunity to a great start in education. Pre-K is for all children, regardless of income and race. Lastly, we welcome...
Thank you. Next, we have Pamela Washington. Go ahead, Ms. Washington.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I just want to express my appreciation for the Young Learners School and the collaboration. It has really enhanced my pre-K program. The Young Learners, they bring in just an array of resources, and my parents are just elated that we have a Young Learners partnership at our preschool. I've been with them a very long time, over 10 years, and it has really transformed my pre-K program, and I just look forward to keeping that going for years to come.
Thank you. Graciela Sines. You may begin.
Good afternoon, or I should say good evening. Honorable President Allen and distinguished board members and Superintendent Latham, I wish to begin with thanking you for providing us the opportunity to speak. This is Gracie Sines. I come not only as a concerned citizen, but also as a representative of our local LULAC Council 60, one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the city. I wish to bring to your attention the issue of the recent non-renewal of the Young Learners nonprofit contract by HISD, an organization that has had a partnership with HISD for 20 years. We realize that due to a board policy that was implemented by the administration to review all charters and external contracts for the district, the nonprofit was asked to submit an application as well, but unfortunately was not recommended for renewal. The process asked for an MWB component, which unfortunately they did not produce, which was never requested in the 20 years. At least that's what's been divulged to us. At a time when most educators know the importance of preschool, especially for minority students, this must be looked into and corrected. We are asking that the board request the administration to allow the organization of young learners to complete the application with the assistance of the administration on how an MWD component can be designed for a nonprofit. If not, we fear that the impact will be detrimental to hundreds of preschoolers, and at a time that HISD is trying to increase their attendance. Your kind consideration to review this process and make the appropriate corrections will be greatly appreciated. Once again, Gracie Stein, representative of our local LULAC Council 60.
Thank you. Caroline Walter. Ms. Walter, you may begin.
Hello. Hi. I'm the mom of three. I'm the mom of 3 young elementary age children in HISD, and I would like to ask you today to strongly consider the removal of the mask mandate in HISD schools. It is our right and responsibility as parents to make the medical decisions regarding our children's health and well-being. I am in no way minimizing the seriousness of COVID-19. But the rights of parents who are predominantly concerned about COVID-19 right now spreading at school should not be taken more seriously than the rights of parents who are as equally worried about their children experiencing other serious health issues due to wearing masks for 8 hours a day. And I have to ask, are you that confident that masks are so effective in preventing COVID that you are ready to take the responsibility of children experiencing health issues such as heat stroke after being forced to run a mile in the heat in Texas in a mask? These are babies. I am aware that mask mandates are a really controversial issue right now. And I know I'm on the wrong side of the rope on this one. And I know I will likely be viewed as socially irresponsible at best. I'm aware of that, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm certainly not a politician, and I'm just a mom. And my sole motive in this is keeping my children healthy and safe. What that means to me may look different than it does to somebody else. But we should not be treated less equal because we should all have the same rights as to keeping our children healthy. I'm not asking that you ban masks from school by any means. I'm not even asking you that you stop encouraging them. I'm just asking.
Thank you. Courtney Jones.
What's that? Gina. That needs to be taken off too.
You may begin.
No, I might work it out. Oh, hello. Thank you. I am a concerned parent and a constituent. Excuse me. I'm a product of public school education, and I went to a public pre-K for free, so I am a public school proponent. I pay taxes here, and I want my child in pre-K in a public school. In HISD, I do not qualify for non-tuition-based public pre-K. By asking me to pay, you are forcing me to look somewhere else, to a charter or private school, which means public schools could lose families of a certain income level, and therefore the public school will be homogeneous in population. NPR reported that researchers said part of what may render a pre-K classroom advantageous for a poor student or a child learning English is the value of being immersed among a diverse array of classmates. And although there will be diversity among those meeting the TEA eligibility, it will not be inclusive. In 2019, the Learning Policy Institute research showed that students that attend preschool programs are more prepared for school, are less likely to be identified as having special needs or to be held back in elementary school than children who do not attend preschool. Studies also show a clear positive effect on children's early literacy and mathematics skills. Since I cannot send my son to pre-K with his peers, he will begin kindergarten behind. I have one child in a high-performing magnet school for HISD and 2 younger children in ECI, and I'm concerned for my middle child. I don't qualify for non-tuition-based public pre-K because those...
Thank you. Josephine Rice. To the Board of Education and Dr. Lathan, tonight I speak on behalf of the nearly 500 members of the Houston Association of School Administrators. Administrators and teachers have reimagined and sustained education during this pandemic. It is time for the board and the administration to reimagine support for school and central office administrators. Administrators want pay that is commensurate with the work they do. Look at salary tables for district leaders. They do not compare with pay for other large school districts across Texas. Our administrators are behind. In addition to equitable pay, we want programs that focus on retention and development. Additionally, the support that is provided by the school's offices should be predictable, transparent, research-based, and consistent. Administrators want clear pathways for growth and development. Thank you. We have one more that called in, that received the call. Jesse Espinosa. Mr. Espinosa, you may begin.
Thank you. Greetings to the school board and Dr. Lathan. Congratulations to you, Dr. Lathan, on your new position. We appreciate all you have done to continue our quest of further developing and supporting fine arts programs in the Houston Independent School District. I hope the search for a new superintendent yields someone that will continue the forward momentum we have gained in providing the highest quality fine arts education and fine arts access for all. We are still in need of budgetary support and flexible master scheduling to meet the needs of all of our students, especially in the fine arts subjects. We help keep our children in school, along with the myriad of special soft skills that make up wonderful people in our world. Lord knows we need that. I hope you're all in support of keeping the high school fine arts credit as a part of the state's graduation requirements, and will join me in recognizing that it is Music in Our Schools Month, as promoted by the National Association for Music Education. Best wishes to you, Dr. Lathan, and thank you all for your time and service to our children.
Thank you.
Next is Luz Flores. My name is Luz Flores, Executive Director of Advance Houston. This evening I would like to address the renewal of the Young Learners Schools agreement with Houston ISD for the upcoming school year. For 20 years, Advance has partnered with Young Learners to provide high-quality early childhood education for children enrolled in its Head Start pre-kindergarten program. Most children enrolled in this program meet the federal poverty guidelines and significantly benefit from comprehensive programs like ours. The instruction provided by Young Learners is a key component of our children's education program. Currently, Young Learners provides teachers for 344 Advance children in 19 classrooms. The partnership allows Advance to enrich its school readiness initiative, offer children instruction by certified teachers, expand bilingual education, align its curriculum with the Texas pre-K guidelines, share professional development resources, and support our classrooms' health and safety practices. The value of services provided by Young Learners for Advance last year equates to over $1.2 million in-kind dollars. We are extremely concerned about the absence of Young Learners from our program next year. Our pre-K children will no longer be enrolled in Houston ISD, resulting in the discontinuation of instruction delivered by certified teachers and disruption of children's now seamless transition to kindergarten. In addition, Advance will have to identify funding to hire replacement teachers and continue its needed bilingual classrooms. The inability to continue the partnership with Young Learners will have a significant budgetary impact on our program. Advance is asking Houston ISD to reconsider its decision and renew the Young Learners School Agreement for 2021-2022. Our children and community desperately need the support of this charter school. Thank you for listening.
Lorena Franco wrote teacher and principal. David Cisneros wrote principal. Reda El Mahabis wrote principal. Cindy Flores also wrote principal. John Segrin. I spoke at last month's board meeting about the opportunity that HISD has to become more sustainable and improve the lives of the students and communities that our district serves. While other school districts such as Conroe ISD and governmental bodies like the City of Houston have moved towards powering their facilities with 100% renewable energy, HISD has not. That means that all HISD facilities are being powered by energy sources that contribute to global warming and extreme weather events such as flooding, extreme heat, and even extreme cold. We are also contributing to polluted air, which increases the chances of our students developing asthma and lung disease. At North Houston Early College High School, where I teach, I lead a climate activism club. Please use us as a resource and put us to work to explore the possibility of an HISD that is powered 100% renewable energy. With a little bit of guidance, my students and I would be happy to go over HISD's current electric contract, contact other companies, and see if it is feasible to make a change to a renewable energy plan. My students are highly motivated to do this work because it is their lives that will be disrupted by climate change. Again, my name is John Seagram. For the sake of our students, please email me so that we can get started.
Patricia Chambers writes, I am interested in understanding why the employees at Barnett Motor Pool are restricted from allowing bus operator attendants from occupying the day room. The transportation management team has placed tables and chairs where we are distancing, so why are we restricted to 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday? I have reasons to believe the governor of Texas as open business 100%, and we know the wearing of masks is still in place. Barnett Motor Pool is a building being publicly operated with taxpayers' dollars. We as employees have the legal right to be in the building during business hours. We are not considering to be trespassing nor loitering because we are employed at that terminal. There shouldn't be any restrictions. According to the governor of Texas, the COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted.
Cynthia DeMunbrin. As a public school educator in the second poorest area of the city, I am floored that a parent valuing public education is being charged tuition for her pre-K child. I don't understand why nothing was put in place for these families that want their child in pre-K but would be required to pay tuition. You could have started a scholarship fund or something while disputing with Congress that they should pay for all students that want to learn once they are school-aged. Caroline Dublé. My name is Caroline Dublé, and I'm a member of One Houston, as well as one of Trustee Hernandez's constituents in District 3. Houston ISD currently funds, oversees, and hosts an independent law enforcement agency that patrols students and campuses on a full-time basis. This police department cost taxpayers around $20 million last year, which is more than HISD spent on counseling and parent involvement combined. HISD police officers are equipped with firearms and drug dogs and have the discretion to arrest and forcibly remove students from campus. These officers are permitted to employ the same tactics that any other law enforcement agency would, but on children, for relatively normal juvenile misbehavior. Let that sink in. When kids act up or misbehave in HISD schools, our response is to criminalize them and introduce them to a criminal justice system that is not suitable for children. School resource officer programs began in the 50s and grew quickly starting in the 1990s amid fear about school shootings. However, a 2018 Washington Post analysis of nearly 200 incidents of gun violence on campus found only 2 times where a school resource officer successfully intervened in a shooting. So while police presence may ease the concern of some parents, they rarely protect students from parents' fears. Most teachers and students have at least one positive story about an HISD police officer, and many of the officers are nice people who genuinely want to keep kids safe. But this problem isn't individual, it's institutional, and the numbers tell a more important story. HISD PD arrests black students at more than double the proportional rate, and the vast majority...
Nayeli Martinez Ramon writes, since my son was a kindergartner, I have frequently been called to pick him up due to behavior, which unbeknownst to me at the time is an unofficial suspension. My son has an invisible disability that, while not immediately apparent, manifests behaviorally. His neurodivergence should not be a disqualifier for success in public education, and his acceptance in a school environment should not be contingent on my ability to assist school staff during the day or my having the means to pay advocates to ensure he is accommodated. I should not have to teach school staff how to interact with my child or how to help him in a crisis. My story is not unique. There is a systemic lack of training and understanding regarding the nature of children's behavior, as evidenced by the disproportionate amount of suspensions, expulsions, disciplinary actions directed at Black and brown children, some of whom have disabilities. Schools should not exist solely for compliant, conformist, neurotypical children, but rather model community, equity, and inclusivity of all children. Challenging behavior occurs when the expectations placed on a child exceed that child's ability to cope. Unfortunately, kids are rejected, isolated, secluded, restrained, suspended because schools are ill-equipped to help a child cope. There must be a paradigm shift in our approach to behavior, reframing behavior for what it is, communication, from the language used in the code of conduct to the training our teachers receive, to the way education occurs in the classroom. I ask HISD to adopt an evidence-based, district-wide social emotional learning framework and a student bill of rights for children with challenging behavior, and that HISD provide funds to help our students and teachers in ways that are trauma-informed, not trauma-ignorant, restorative, not punitive, and proactive, not reactive. Barbara Mulugeta. I'm sorry, that's the next one.
That's fine. Barbara Mulugeta wrote principal, and that concludes the hearing of the community.
Reports and comments. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. Please limit your time to 1 minute per trustee. We will proceed in order from District 1 to District 9. Trustee Santos?
Dr. Allen, can I go last, please?
Trustee Bluford Daniels? Trustee Hernandez?
I want to say I appreciate everything that Dr. Lathan has done for the district over this past 3 years. I wish you well in your new role, and that's it.
Trustee Allen, I just want to say celebrate women. This is Women's Month. Trustee Dygard.
I want to echo my colleague and thank you, Dr. Lathan, for all that you have done for our students over these past 3 years, and wish you well in your next endeavor. The students are going to be lucky to have you.
Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Echoing my colleagues' sentiments as well, wishing you the best on your next endeavor, Dr. Lathan. Thank you so much for your dedication to our students and community here in HISD. You will truly be missed. Thank you so much for your service. And Springfield, Missouri, watch out.
Trustee Sung.
Thank you. On Women's History Month, I'd like to acknowledge what a privilege it is to serve with this team of 10 in particular. Dr. Lathan, I know that you're still with us for several months, but I want to say thank you to you for all that you have done for this district over these 6 years. You know, the IB programs you've expanded, the fine arts programs you've expanded, the many systems you've put into place in this district to make sure that we hear from a broad array of constituents and stakeholders. Those are going to continue to serve students in HISD into the future. So thank you and best wishes to you as you transition to your new role. Springfield is going to be lucky to have you. Thank you.
Trustee Cruz?
Yeah, I feel like a broken record, but definitely would be remiss if I didn't thank you as well for providing stable leadership during unstable times. Appreciate all you've done. Thank you so much.
Trustee Guidry?
Happy Women's History Month to everyone. Dr. Lathan, I'm going to save my remarks to you for when you get ready to actually leave. I hope we have the opportunity to make remarks at that time. I'd like to acknowledge Welch Middle School for receiving the TASB 2021 Dr. J. Cummings Demonstration School, for being acknowledged for that. Also, a shout out to all of the area principals of the year and the first year principals of the year, the area principal of the year, specifically Megan Edwards of Grissom Elementary. I have to send a shout out to her. Also, I want to say thank you to all of the schools. Thank you to HISD for providing food services during this time of food insecurity, but also to all of the schools who have taken it upon themselves to feed their communities and provide water and needs for their communities and the schools and students in their area. It has been a pleasure working with each and every one of the schools that I've gone out with, and I look forward to continuing to do so. And again, happy Women's Day, Women's History Month to all of my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, Dr. Allen. So I just want to say, parents, thank you so much for trusting your children with us. Teachers, thank you so much for all the work that you do. This is hard. Principals and administrators, remember you were next on our list to be honored 2 years ago in that budget cycle. Additionally, I just want to acknowledge Women's History Month by talking about Dolores Puerta and Carmelita Torres, who were movers and shakers and combated oppressive movements. But it was because of the women like these that we are today. And students, those of you that spoke tonight, you are the movers and the shakers. We're talking about climate change when we're up here. We're talking about systemic and structural racism. So every time that you speak, if your voices are up here, we want to include you in our policy making decisions. So please don't give up, even though it doesn't look like you're gaining much ground. You will be the next Carmelita Torres, the next Dolores Puerta, the next Cesar Chavez. You will be the people that will influence the decisions of tomorrow. So don't give up on this board. I know it's very frustrating being on the outside looking in, but just to remember that it's because of people that do the next right thing and don't play politics that we are where we're at today. So to my students, y'all are our students, y'all are amazing, and don't give up. Thank you.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Thank you. Real quickly, I'd like to say thank you, congratulations to all the women for Women's History Month. Thank you to your staff continuously. I don't think we say that enough, because they're here enduring with us and working these long hours. And I just want you to know from me, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, because I know that you all have families. Some people say, well, that's your responsibility. Well, I don't think so, because you do have families that you have to go home to. I'd like to say also that I'm grateful that we've had opportunities for COVID vaccines to open up to the teachers. And a lot of us have been pushing that for several months. And yes, you should have been a part of the 1A and the 1B. But as it became available in my other position, then I try to notify teachers where applicable to go ahead and get them in line. So we're grateful for that, because you all are the framework that keeps our babies going, and we depend on you all. So I don't want you to think that we take you for granted. So thank you, and thank you all for your services.
Madam Superintendent, do you have any reports for us?
No reports, thank you.
The board will now adjourn to closed session for Board Services Conference Room and board members' individual offices connected by video conference under Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.004, 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.0821, 551.083, 551.084, and 551.089. Should board final action, vote, or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action, vote, or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent meeting at the board upon notice thereof. The board has adjourned to closed session at 8:40 p.m.
The meeting is now reconvened. The time is
9:20. Our next regular board meeting will be on April 8th, 2021, and agenda review for that meeting will be held on April 1st, 2021. There being no further business, the meeting is officially adjourned at 9:20 p.m.
Good night, brilliant women.
Good night.